the start of it.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess we can get right into it then. Start this fire. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Aflixionados podcast, episode 10. It's a big milestone for us. My name is Eric, and the other voice occupying your head this time is my sister, devoted mom, and co-host, Stephanie.
Yo.
Thank you all to the listeners out there for joining us. Aflixionados is a monthly podcast where we mainly talk about films that range from mind-numbing to mind-blowing. Occasionally, we may also cover TV shows or other forms of media, like today. It goes without saying, we will be getting into spoilers here, and there will be only the healthiest amount of expletives tossed in. You have been warned. Now, if you ain't ready, then get ready, because in today's episode, winter is here, everybody. That's right. We're talking about Game of Thrones.
Yeah, it is snowing in King's Landing today.
Hold the door and let's march on in. You know, I always got to throw out that little quick synopsis in there. So Game of Thrones is about 9 noble families who fight for control over the lands of Westeros while an ancient enemy returns after being dormant for millennia. I'm like super excited to talk about this episode. You know, we've been kind of hinting this episode for a long time. I think pretty much since episode 1. Like, I think in every episode, at least like the first couple ones, we kind of hint that we're going to be talking about a TV show here and there. And
well, I mean, you always say it in your little blurb.
Mm-hmm. TV shows, yeah, but I feel like, you know, we kind of throw that out there just to cover our asses, just to give us the option to talk about TV shows at some point. But I felt like we don't quote or like reference any other show more than Game of Thrones, I felt like.
Yeah.
And, you know, now it's time.
It is.
The time has come.
This is quite the undertaking we're attempting here today, trying to fit the entire series into this one podcast.
Can it be done? Should it be done?
Right? Well, we're going to do it.
Will we survive? That's the question.
Yes.
I think it's going to go pretty well. All right. So I wanted to just throw some extra info out there before we jump right into the episodes. So Game of Thrones, this is a fantasy drama series which was created by D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, specifically for HBO. This is an adaptation of the George R.R. Martin fantasy novel series, A Song of Ice and Fire, with the show borrowing its title from the very first book in the series called A Game of Thrones. Interesting note.
Indeed.
The Song of Ice and Fire series is still ongoing. A Game of Thrones, the first novel in the series, was released back in 1996. And the latest novel that actually came out, well, actually, you know, he's working on one right now, right? So that one is...
supposedly he's working on the last one, and I mean, personally, I'm skeptical that it's going to be released before he dies.
So I've heard two different things. So I've heard that this might be his last one, and I heard that this is the penultimate book. So
is that so?
This novel is called it's going to be called The Winds of Winter. Who knows if he's going to change that by the time he actually releases the novel. Yes. But it's still currently being written with no ETA. So I also heard that if he ever gets this one out, the one that could potentially come after it is going to be called A Dream of Spring. But like you said, I'm very skeptical that he's even going to get this one out, but we'll see. I'm hoping that he'll at least get this one out, and maybe, I don't know, like big fans of the series, or like his fellow author friends can kind of finish up the series for him.
Maybe some family or something like that. Yeah, you know, yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I read the first book, I want to say almost to the end.
Nice. I actually did read it all the way through.
Well, we've talked about this. The part where I stopped, you claim is in the second book. So maybe I did finish the first book and get into the second book before I got bored. But I have this problem where when it comes to fantasy books, I mean, I love fantasy. Don't get me wrong. Like most of what I read is probably fantasy. But when there's too much description about traveling, or B, battle strategy or war strategy,
Mm-hmm.
it loses me. So there was some point in the book where it was basically
Is that just really boring to you?
it is super boring to me. Like I just cannot, get through it basically without like falling asleep. So it was the scene where Rob is, planning to go fight. Well, he's trying to get his army together and go fight the Lannisters. Because they killed? No, do they find out they killed his dad while he's out there?
Well, I think he's like marching out there to save his dad, and then he gets killed, right? So that's when he's like, "Nah, fuck that. We're gonna kill all of them."
I think so.
I think that's how it goes down.
Sam even it was I mostly even left it out of my notes because it's in season 2, and so I don't know if it's book 1 or book 2, but yeah, they're basically like in a tent, and it's like Catelyn and Rob and whoever else. Renly.
Was Renly there?
Yeah, because
Okay.
he was. Well, no, at some point. Well, definitely at some point he's there because he's who gets killed by the Shadow Baby, and then Marjorie is free. Marjorie's his wife.
I'm thinking of Roose Bolton. Roose was there. He was running with Rob for a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and so I get to that part in the book, and it just lost me.
Like you said earlier, we're going to be doing this episode a little bit differently than we normally do. So, in order to be able to cover the entire series of this show without it being like 150 hours long,
Seriously,
we're going to be covering each season one by one and in chronological order. But we're going to be choosing our top events for each season.
yes.
And, it's going to be ranging from like things that we thought were the most impactful, vital to the story, or something that just really resonated with us, that really stuck with us, and we really enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly.
And we felt like doing it this way, it'll keep us from spending too much time on the early seasons and then like force us to rush past the last few seasons to be able to get everything in on time.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, we try to respect our audience's time by trying to make quality content to the best of our ability while also having fun with it,
Exactly.
And of course, we won't be able to cover like every nook and cranny of the entire series, but we really did want to take our time revisiting this wondrous world again because for many years, it really was some of the best storytelling and character development that at least I personally have ever seen or experienced on TV.
It's interesting because for me, I want to say like it was pretty intense. It's obviously, it's that show kind of changed my view of TV.
Has
because
it? Okay.
Up until that point, no joke, up until that point, I would watch a show and I'm sitting there watching a show, I'm expecting, the main character to prevail. I'm expecting the like good to prevail, the main character to triumph, and all that kind of cutesy happy
all
rainbow
that
stuff.
Weak shit.
Yep. And then at the end of season 1, the main character gets his head lopped off, and that was the point at which I was like, okay, no more emotionally investing in anybody.
Do you think though that the show lost a lot of people because of that? They're just like, what the fuck is this? I'm not watching this. It's
possible. It did kind of like mentally lose me for a while after that until I got used to it, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
It kind of desensitized you.
Yeah, it took me a little bit to kind of like reconcile with the fact that basically I was just going to have to look at it differently than I normally looked at anything else that I ever watched.
Right. At least you get to kind of mentally prepare yourself.
And so it was kind of like the Game of Thrones and Walking Dead were the two shows that really made me realize like, oh, TV's kind of different now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get too attached.
Yes, especially on this show, the Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so season 1.
Well, before you get into that, I did want to add to that by saying that you didn't get to go through and watch the entire show, but I actually did. So this was something before.
You mean like back to back? Because I've seen the whole thing.
Well, I'm talking like rewatching it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
get to rewatch it. So, yeah, for me, I have to kind of rely on memory and
And just like what you read.
yeah.
Yeah, I actually restarted watching it because I was curious with how I felt about the series when I first watched it and how disappointed I was, much like everyone else. I was curious to see if I would still enjoy it a second time around. So, about like, I want to say maybe October of last year, I started rewatching the show. And then I took a little bit of a break, went on vacation in December. So I picked it back up in January. And I think it was probably like probably like season 6. I picked up in January and I got to finish it before we recorded this episode.
That's
And,
nice.
you know, there were still a lot of elements about the last 2 seasons that I didn't enjoy, but you know
Mm-hmm.
what? I felt like I was able to pick up on a lot more the second time around, and I was able to enjoy the last 2 seasons for what they were. You know,
Yeah,
they weren't the best by any means.
I kind of agree with you. I kind of felt similarly. I mean, obviously, I didn't get a chance to rewatch the whole thing, but when I did all my, rereading basic synopses or whatever, um, I did find that it made me kind of want to rewatch it all together because I feel like instead of, waiting a year between each season and then kind of forgetting things and then trying to remember things, I feel like I would have appreciated it more if I could have seen the whole story from start to finish without a break in it. And I did catch more stuff and appreciate more stuff, even not even watching it, just reading about it this time around than
Yeah.
I did the first time I watched it.
And you know, the seasons that engrossed us in the past, they still hold up. Like the early seasons, like the first like 1 through 6, I would say, those still hold up. And you know, we kind of we want to treat this episode almost like a love letter to Game of Thrones because I want to remember it for the good rather than the bad.
Yeah. So we're not talking about Joffrey at all then?
Well, you know, he was vital to the story. So there are
That
definitely
kid was
some
all
memorable
bad.
moments with that guy.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
I don't know. Should I start so that way we can kind of like and like every season maybe like we can kind of trade off like who goes first
Sure.
to keep it fair. Okay, so season 1. We're only talking about season 1 here, and we'll let you know when we're going to be switching to different seasons. So the first event I want to bring up in season 1, it's got to be episode 1. Winter is coming. Because you know this is
Right.
where they introduce everything. Like they start building up that world. They're introducing you to the characters. I mean, like right out the gate, they introduce the White Walkers. You know, which are the overarching threat that persists until like the very last season.
Mm-hmm.
And you know they got some memorable moments like Bran Stark being paralyzed and nearly killed by being pushed out the window by Jaime Lannister. You know, the things we do for love,
Oh my
the
goodness.
that line. But the main reason why I want to remember episode 1 is because this is where Daenerys marries Khal Drogo and receives her seemingly petrified and useless dragon eggs. And you know, this is kind of like the beginning of this epic story for her. So that's kind of why I want to bring it up.
That is true. Are you gonna go through all your points first, or
No, you know, we can
okay?
kind of like bounce back and forth because if we choose similar events or
Yeah, we
similar
did. Yeah,
episodes.
definitely episode one. Like I told you earlier, I just kind of wrote down everything that I thought was important, and then kind of highlighted the stuff that seemed even more important, the most important. And I had three things all in episode one. Of I think I had six. I ended up having like 6 points bolded in season one, and episode one had three whole points that I thought were like the most important. But I guess that makes sense because it's introducing everything, right? And so, like you said, we get introduced to the Stark family, and we're like,
Exactly.
okay, the main characters, the main family. The Lannisters come to visit because Robert is asking Ned to be the Hand, right? And so the Lannisters come too. Obviously, Robert's wife, Cersei, and the what Lord Commander of the King's Guard or whatever. That's Jamie.
Hmm.
So they all come together, and then we find out that Jaime and Cersei are twins, but they're also incestuous lovers.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, I was thinking, I feel like a lot would not even have happened if those two weren't in love with each other.
You think so? Like, you felt like they would have been a lot less crazy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they wouldn't have had kids together. Bran never would have gotten paralyzed. Robert probably would have had his own kids to be heir, and there wouldn't have been all this controversy once he did die, especially when people start figuring out that his kids weren't his kids and they're not the heir.
Sure.
You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So I feel like a lot of this stuff might have been avoided. I mean, obviously not the whole Daenerys thing because she was still coming. But yeah, I feel like there's a decent amount that kind of might have been avoided if that didn't happen. But then obviously Bran gets pushed out the window, which sets up a chain reaction of events that doesn't really become important until the very last season. Because I feel like there's a lot of stuff that a lot of the Bran story points that I just kind of skipped over until the very end when he comes up with a bunch of useful information.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So with the White Walkers, Bran getting pushed out the window, and the twin incest.
Twincest.
Twincest. My important points of episode 1.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't think you were actually going to be listing your episodes as well. I thought that was just me.
No, I wouldn't know what the heck was going on if I didn't.
Yeah, same here. That's why I did it. Yeah, and to explain to the audience, we're going to be bouncing back and forth with our events that we chose for each season, and we're going to be choosing similar events. So let's say if you bring it up first, I'll cross off my list, and then if I bring it up first, then you cross off your list, and then we just kind of combine it together.
Yeah.
All right. I also wanted to bring up episode 4, Cripples, Bastards, and Broken Things, because this is where the Hand of the King, Ned Stark, has a strong suspicion about Joffrey being King Robert Baratheon's legitimate son, as there has supposedly never been a blonde Baratheon from what they explain. And so he digs deeper and discovers that King Robert does have an actual son, a bastard son, in Gendry. He seeks out, finds him in Flea Bottom. He has
multiple, yeah.
Well, this is the oldest, right? The oldest of his illegitimate sons. So he finds him in Flea Bottom and notices that he looks a hell of a lot more like Robert than Joffrey does.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's also interesting to note that they both like using hammers as weapons. I didn't even notice that.
Gendry?
Yeah. King Robert, he used a warhammer when he was during the Robert's Rebellion. And then Gendry also chooses a hammer when he fights in the later seasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that does make sense since he chooses to become a smith, and they use a lot of hammers.
Yep. Yeah, and
that does make sense.
I felt like this episode, this really felt like it was the beginning of the end for Ned. It truly did.
Yeah, and I wrote down similarly, actually, later on in episode 6 when he really realizes for sure that Cersei's kids are not Robert's. Yeah, and then same episode 6.
Okay.
For me, is when Daenerys realizes that fire cannot hurt her, that she's the true, mother of dragons or whatever, and then she realizes. Well, I mean, she's been realizing for a while that her brother's a little bitch, but when she lets him get killed, like, you want your gold crown, here's your gold crown, and she just sits there and watches, and she's like, yeah.
It was a little strange, right? And because you felt like she would have been more emotional, but you know what? I didn't think that was that crazy, and I also have that.
Well, okay. Here's the thing, though. The thing with Daenerys, and I guess I might as well out myself right now. I'm going to be talking about how Daenerys. A lot of people were disappointed to see her basically lose her mind towards the end, but my argument is that she was crazy from the start, and the signs are there. So this for me is sign number 1. The thing with Daenerys is that most of the crap she does most people would say, yeah, but they deserved it. Yeah, sure, they did deserve it, but that doesn't make it any less crazy. Yeah, her brother totally deserved that, but it doesn't make it any less crazy the way she just sat there and watched it like nothing.
It was a little concerning. You're like, huh, she must have been through some shit, to really feel that way, because up until then, she actually did really love her brother, but you get the sense that he just fucking kept digging his own grave because he treated her like utter garbage every single time they were together.
And he was such a little bitch.
Yeah, he was. Like, that's the thing, was like he was probably insanely insecure about himself because he kept trying to bring her down to make himself feel better about himself.
That's true.
And so, she was the younger, naive sibling, and she trusted Viserys. She thought, you're my older brother, you're in charge of taking care of me, you know what's best for me, and I trust you. And he was totally just like using her for his own gain.
Mm-hmm.
You really get a sense of how selfish he was and how much of a piece of shit he truly was.
That makes it all the more crazy that she just let him die like that. Her brother that she looked up to all her life and that she depended on and that she looked to for protection, and all of a sudden she's just like, yeah, you're gone. You're no use to me anymore.
Yep. It's also on my list, episode 6, A Golden Crown. I wrote down, Khal Drogo kills Daenerys' bitter and jealous brother, Viserys, by pouring molten gold onto his mouth and face, essentially giving him that golden crown that he so desperately wanted. And it was pretty awesome.
It was very satisfying. Yeah.
I don't think there was a single person that felt bad for that guy.
Nope.
That was a hell of a way to go, though. That was pretty creative on Khal Drogo's part.
Yeah.
Crazy. Awesome, though.
Definitely so satisfying.
I think that was like one of the first like holy shit moments of the show.
Yeah.
You're like, damn.
onto my biggest life changing holy shit moment in the show that changed my life.
Okay.
Is episode 9. Do you have anything for episode 7 or 8?
I do, actually. So
okay.
I have episode 7, You Win or You Die. So this is King Robert's deathbed. And he assigns Ned as the protector of the realm until a proper heir can assume the crown. And, he writes it down on paper and everything as proof.
The true heir, right?
Mm-hmm.
He writes the true heir or something?
Ned has, he has the paper that was signed by King Robert saying like...
because Robert says Joffrey. But Ned writes down the heir.
I think King Robert was actually starting to believe Ned around this time because Ned was already telling him like, hey, I don't think that's your son, bro. And so I think that's when he's like, you know what? Like, I don't know what craziness is going on, but I trust you, Ned. So I think that's when he basically gives the power to him to like kind of decide what happens. He's like, whether you decide to accept Joffrey as the heir or you find someone else that's more suitable, I trust you. And so Ned thinks that this piece of paper is going to protect him. He's walking around like, look, Robert signed this shit. I have the power now. But, he doesn't do it in an asshole way. He's just saying like, I'm going to take care of the realm. I'm going to take care of King's Landing and I'm going to do what's right for everyone. And so, he trusts in Peter Baelish to gather up the guards to back him up. And as Ned confronts Cersei and Joffrey to strip them of their crown, Baelish betrays Ned and sides with the Lannisters. He tells the guards to arrest Ned, and Ned is locked up and sentenced to death.
Yeah, actually, one of the things I wrote down for episode 7 was Littlefinger sucks and continues to forever.
I definitely wanted to bring it up because I want to drive home the shit that Peter Baelish has done to the Starks, because he's done some fucked up shit, and he's going to do a lot more later on.
And he claims to love Catelyn so much.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
and later Sansa.
He loved Catelyn and he loved Sansa. He was a fucking creeper
weirdo,
to the max.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, go.
Ned dies.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my goodness. I mean, up until this point in my head, he was the main character and he was going to last the whole show and then eventually prevail.
You thought he was protected.
Yeah. And then he dies. Not even at the end of season 1.
Not even the end. Yeah, you're right. That's true. Which is, I think that's something that they kind of carry throughout the later seasons, is they have this like huge event that happens, but it's not even the season finale.
It's always like that. The whole show, the whole series does that.
almost has like a wrap up of after that major event.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so the biggest event always happens in the penultimate episode, and then the last episode just kind of does whatever wrap up it needs to do and then moves on. But obviously, you know, we start finding out a little bit about how sadistic Joffrey is.
Mm-hmm.
Ned is executed in front of Sansa. Arya sees it too, doesn't she?
She does, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Sansa's like on stage with her, like bawling. Yeah. Arya is like standing on a statue, and she sees it from the crowd's perspective.
Yeah, my whole life, my whole world, got flipped upside down after that. But then
really fucked you up.
Yeah, I've been scarred since.
Did you say that you're considering stopping the show after that?
No, actually, it's funny. I'll let you know the point that I considered stopping the show. It was not the Red Wedding, just so you know.
Okay, all right.
But it actually had to do with other people, not the actual show itself. So I'll get into that once we get
Interesting.
there.
So side characters.
No, my classmates.
Aw, okay. Yeah, just make sure you bring it up when we get to it.
I will. Okay, so then in the last episode, well, we didn't really touch on this too much, but Khal Drogo dies after he was wounded, and Daenerys' dragons, the seemingly petrified dragon eggs, hatch.
Yep, episode 10, Fire and Blood. After accepting the witch's black magic ritual to save Khal Drogo, the witch essentially uses Daenerys' unborn baby as the sacrifice to save Drogo.
Which doesn't work.
And Drogo is just like a shell of his former self. It's like such a like be careful what you wish for moment.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So
he just came back as like some zombie vegetable kind of thing.
Yeah, he's alive, but like barely. He's in a vegetative state, can't move or anything, can't eat hardly. And he's definitely not this like fierce warrior that you remember him being.
Mm-hmm. And doesn't the witch say at some point that she did that on purpose?
Yeah, because she I think she prophesied that if he had reached Westeros, he would have like laid waste to everything. And so he would have been like this plague that like just ruined the land or something. So she took it upon herself to kind of stop that from happening.
Yeah, and so she kills him herself, right?
Yeah.
And then on his funeral
Daenerys,
pyre,
you're saying.
Yeah, Daenerys, I mean, yeah. Daenerys kills him. And then on his funeral pyre, she walks into it with the eggs and then ends up coming out completely unscathed.
She mercifully kills Drogo by smothering him, suffocating him. Yeah. And then I felt like in this funeral pyre that she made for Drogo, I almost felt like she didn't know what was going to happen. And she was kind of suicidal. I felt like she was just like, I have nothing to live for. I lost my baby. I lost the love of my life.
I know.
I don't know
what she was hoping for. I don't know what she was hoping for, but she knew she wasn't going to die at that point because.
Do you think so? I felt like she did.
No, she did. She did because in the episode where her brother gets killed, she realizes that fire can't hurt her.
But how did she know that?
Don't ask me.
So that's why I'm thinking she was suicidal, because she didn't. That was the big moment, was you didn't know. You keep hearing that like dragons can't be hurt by fire, and that like the Targaryens have like this weird connection with dragons. And then I think this is when you finally see what that connection is, and that you're like, holy shit, some Targaryens are like impervious to fire? What the fuck? I want to say this is when that's actually revealed.
No, it's revealed earlier. I'm looking it up right now because. Okay, so she actually reads somewhere or hears somewhere that you're supposed to put the dragon eggs in the fire.
Okay.
So she does. And she's just trying to see if they're real or if they'll hatch or
well, she knows they're real. I just don't think that anyone knows if they're going to actually hatch or not, yeah.
So she accidentally touches one of the hot eggs and she doesn't get burned.
But how hot was it really? Like it could have
just the fire.
It could have just been warm.
It was in the fire, and I think the slave girl gets burned, but she doesn't.
Oh, interesting. So what that would tell me was that, okay, she might be a little bit more resistant to it, but I wouldn't expect her to like stand in this fucking flame and just be completely fine. Yeah. You can just say like,
maybe
okay,
she might not know. Like, well, I don't know how much she would know, to what extent she would know, because she would have heard the stories from her.
Exactly, and they allude to it. They allude to it like how, they keep foreshadowing that dragons can't be harmed by fire, and stuff like that. And so, and they consider themselves to be like human versions of dragons, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and that's why when Viserys dies with the molten gold that's poured on him, and she even utters the words like he was no dragon, because he died from like the hot gold. But honestly, like if you swallowed liquid gold, you would die too, even if, like, no matter who the fuck you are.
I feel like she said that because she knew that fire wouldn't hurt her, and that's why she was like she was basically saying he was no dragon, I am.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think she felt that there was a good chance she was more legitimate than he was,
Mm-hmm. I wonder though, because I mean he was part of the family. Why did the fire hurt him and not her?
Well, that's the thing, is it's not everyone. It's like a true dragon, and he was just a fucking weak piece of shit. And he was only Targaryen by name, but not like a true prophesized Targaryens, like the legendary Targaryens that they talk about. He was just like, no, he's like a descendant. He's no one.
Yeah.
I don't think that really, like, I don't think every single Targaryen had a relationship with dragons, I don't think they could all fight, and they were all like these like crazy warriors or whatever, or superiorly intelligent. There was a lot of them, though. Maybe that's why the Targaryens themselves chose to inbreed a lot, was because they wanted to keep that,
that in the family,
that ability in the family. Yeah, they didn't want to dilute it, essentially. So for the Targaryens, incest is not that weird. That's more accepted. It's more normal.
And for some of the Lannisters too. Maybe that's why it was not super weird once Daenerys and Jon found out that they were aunt and nephew.
Exactly. Yeah. This is like a highly intelligent race or like breed of humans that believes that incest is not wrong, so it's, who's to say that maybe that didn't kind of attribute to them having these like weird supernatural abilities, essentially, like being able to withstand fire.
Madness.
Exactly. That's like a byproduct of it, right? Is like, you're fucking crazy. And that's, the Targaryens also had that reputation. They had a lot of fucking psychos in the family.
They sure did.
Yep. And that was something that Daenerys had to have held over her head all the time, was like, your dad was fucking crazy. The Mad King this, the Mad King that. And I think she idolized her brother a lot, Rhaegar. I don't know if she knew him for too long. Like maybe it felt like there was a little bit of a gap between like maybe Rhaegar and Viserys. So I don't think Daenerys was like that close to Rhaegar, but it seemed like she definitely was old enough to remember a lot about Rhaegar. And it seemed like he was a badass motherfucker. At least that's what sense I got.
I agree.
And he also wasn't crazy. So I don't know. Or at least he didn't live long enough to seem like he was crazy.
Wasn't he part of the Kingsguard or something?
Was he? He was the one that, I think he was the one that really sparked that huge change. He started Robert's rebellion because he stole the wife, wasn't it?
Lyanna.
So yeah.
Are you talking about
King Robert? Before he was king, he was set to wed
Lyanna Stark. Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like, at least from the outside perspective, that Rhaegar, it was either like he went crazy and like just like stole Lyanna and like felt like he left her instead, or that maybe he was just being like kind of selfish and he wanted everyone, for himself. But then, it's like revealed later that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So yeah, do you want to start season 2?
I suppose so. Well, actually, the season 2 starts off, in my opinion, pretty slow.
Well, I mean, you don't have to choose the first episode if you didn't like it. You can just choose whatever event you want to start with.
I actually didn't think it started getting really important until like there was one part in episode 2, and then I don't even write anything down. Oh, I don't bold anything until like episode 6 or something. So episode 2, we find out that the White Walkers are taking babies.
I also wrote down this episode.
Yeah. And we find out later that they only take male babies, right? Yeah.
And this is crazy too, because this is that he's not a wildling, right? But he lives north of the wall. Is that what I'm understanding? Or is he considered a wildling?
Who?
The guy, what's his name? He's the one that
has all his daughters as wives?
Exactly, yeah. So all the males are gone, like all the sons are gone, but he keeps the daughters, and then he has babies with his daughters to have more babies. And
if they're boys, he gives them to the White Walkers, and if they're girls, he makes them wives.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just super creepy.
Yeah, and that's essentially, I think that's like the first town the Night Watch are able to reach once they go north of the wall. So that's always like a pit stop for them. They always stop by there. He takes care of them. He shelters them, and then they can continue their journey.
That's true.
So that's why they want to keep that relationship with him.
I want to say his name was Castor.
Castor's Keep or something like that.
So that was fun. A little weird.
Mm-hmm. That was a weird town, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's just one family.
Yeah.
Essentially.
It's like all kinds of weird incest also. What is up with this series and incest?
That's probably why a lot of people dropped off too, is once they start finding all that out, they're like, oh, I can't do it.
Yeah. It's a little bit weird for some people, I think. So other things I write down, just to touch on them, like, Marjorie and Brienne are introduced, and I always liked them, so I noted that. Theon betrays the Starks. Joffrey is a sadistic little shit. And the Shadow Baby. Yeah, I've always thought, the whole Melisandre thing was super weird and, like, not wholly necessary. I mean, what ended up being her point except she brought Jon back at some point? Like, everything she did just kind of led up to her bringing back Jon.
I felt like she did bring a lot of mystique to the show, though, because you're like, not a lot is known about Melisandre, and you're just like, who the fuck are these, like, these red witches, and, like, they all kind of look that way. That's, like, their thing. Yeah, that's
true. Uh-huh.
And they come from, like, a distant land, so I think it says that she comes from, like, the far end of Essos.
Okay.
I forget where exactly, but apparently it's like this weird, like, shadowy place, and everyone believes it to have, like, a lot of like supernatural shit going on there. Like, there's like a lot of witchcraft and whatnot going on there. Yeah, this was definitely a trippy episode for me. This is where, Stannis tries to produce a male heir with Melisandre because his wife Selyse is unable to produce one with him, and this leads to Melisandre getting pregnant, but something is really weird because it's, like, developing really quickly in her
like
stomach.
In an episode.
Eventually, this leads to her giving birth to a shadow baby that kills Stannis' brother and challenger to the throne, Renly Baratheon. And that was a fucking crazy scene to watch.
To which everybody who was watching the show at the time breathed a collective, what the fuck?
Yeah. Especially Davos, because he was there. He saw the whole thing. He had, like, a front row seat to it.
That must have been fun.
I forget that, because, later on in the seasons, he, like, has this real disdain for her. But, like, man, he's been through some shit with her. I forgot that, yeah. He was there for that.
Yeah, he's definitely been through some stuff, for sure. That Shadow Baby actually kills Renly and then just disappears? Because the Shadow Baby never comes back.
I felt like, because that was some dark magic shit too, and that was when, in episode 4, that's when she gives birth to the shadow creature that kills Renly, and I want to say that's like a one-off thing. So I think that was her whole purpose for getting pregnant, essentially, was to feed this dark magic, and that was her weapon that she used to kill Renly. She was like, okay, Stannis, if you want to get rid of your little bro, which I don't necessarily think that, did Stannis actually want to kill Renly, or did he want to just, like, take him out of the running?
I don't think so. I don't think he actually wanted to kill him.
I didn't think he was that heartless, but he's not. He's pretty bitter about a lot of things. I have I have episode 6. Do you have anything before that?
I did, actually. Okay. I had where Arya what's his name, Jaqen
Hagar.
Yeah, that guy. She saves him and gets 3 lives in exchange. And so I was like, well, that's important because
that was fucking cool. I want to say, because he's like this dope assassin.
Yeah, and so she sets up a lot of her development in the future, because for a while, like, Arya's just kind of traveling around trying to survive and not doing much.
Right.
She really finds her own when she trains with him and gains all the skills that she needs to go exact her own revenge before she kind of, sails off into the unknown at the end of the show.
Right. This Jaqen Hagar guy, there's something mysterious about him. Like you don't know how he does it, but he always finds a way to take people out.
Yes.
There's something likable about him, like you knew that.
Yeah, I agree.
He wasn't malicious towards at least the main characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was. I kind of thought of him as like a death genie.
Mm-hmm.
You get 3 wishes, and like you tell me who you want to kill. Mm-hmm. So I want to bring up episode 6, The Old Gods and the New, because if nothing else, this is where my girl Ygritte gets introduced.
Oh my God.
And for the longest time, I felt like there was just no other female character that was as strong as she was or as interesting as she was. I felt like, Daenerys is off in Essos doing her thing, but I felt like she didn't actually start gaining like any noticeable power, like strength, self-strength until the later seasons. So I felt like in this episode, Ygritte is introduced. She's a wildling that the Night's Watch captures, and Jon is he's kind of in charge of like personally like watching over her. And I think at some point the Night's Watch, they get separated. So it's just Ygritte and Jon kind of by themselves, right? This is when you start seeing like how witty Ygritte is. And she kind of flirts with Jon a little bit. She's like, you're kind of cute, type of thing, but you're still a crow. So you're kind of a piece of shit. Because to the wildlings, the Night's Watch are just like, they're assholes, right? I just wanted to give a shout out to my girl Ygritte, because she, even till the end of the show, Ygritte was still one of my favorite characters.
Yeah. I mean, she's cool and stuff, but like, I guess I didn't really feel like she had much of a purpose. But now that you mention it, I guess her purpose could have been to soften Jon's view of the wildlings so that they could eventually form an alliance.
Yeah, he almost started to get personally invested. Mm-hmm. And I think it's that tireless story of like how opposites attract, because Jon is like really respectful, serious, and honorable, and she's kind of this free spirit, and she's really talkative, outgoing, outspoken, right? Jon's like really stoic all the time, and so they were really like opposites. And I think to this day, at least the way that the showrunners developed the relationships, I felt like that was one of the best relationships that they produced on the show.
Yeah, I did enjoy their relationship. It was fun and stuff, but that was kind of how I looked, the only way I looked at it for a long time.
She helped build a lot of confidence in himself.
Yeah, that's true.
He was always kind of questioning his abilities. Like he always felt that he was just second best to Robb. Like he could never measure up to Robb.
He was just a bastard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he never thought highly of himself. And Ygritte was like, who the fuck cares what they think? Like, like you make your own destiny type of thing.
Yeah.
What you got?
Theon, I literally wrote this down verbatim. Theon, the little shit, takes Winterfell.
The little shit. Dude, such a fucking like piece of shit move from Theon, right?
I know. Yeah, so I was thinking like maybe in Theon's head, like he did consider them family to an extent, but at the same time, in the back of his head, he knew what he was to them, and he wanted vengeance in a way.
I felt like he was manipulated into thinking that once he got home, because his dad was like, he's like, you look at you, you're a fucking Stark now, like they made you soft. And so he had to kind of prove himself to his father again. I
agree.
But still, that wasn't the right way.
No.
So I have episode 8, The Prince of Winterfell. Do you have this down? I
have something in episode 8 written down, yes.
Possibly? Okay. So what I wanted to touch on with this one, man, this is the start of a very big mistake. Robb is already, he's been made King of the North, and he's like out for blood. He's marching towards King's Landing, and he's like, I'm about to fuck people up. And along the way, he had to strike this deal at the Twins. In order to cross that bridge, that river, he needed to strike a deal with Walder Frey to marry one of his daughters. And so Robb's like, all right, fine. If you'll let us pass, I'll marry one of your fucking daughters when I get back. And, I think the joke is that like the Freys are just like inherently just hideous. Like they're all just they look like goblins, essentially, you know? And so like I think it's made out to be that Rob is like this heartthrob. He's like really handsome, and you know all the girls would want to go for him. So he looks at the girls and he's just like, oof, you know, like this is slim pickings, but you know I'll decide that when it comes to it.
Yeah, they're all trying to like bat their eyes at him and stuff.
Trying to win him over. I mean, did you ever think that Rob was like one of the more attractive ones on the show, or you're like, not really?
Yeah, no, I did.
Okay.
I mean, I wasn't. That's not what I was like exactly watching the show for. But
so the reason why I bring up this episode is because all that is to lead up to Rob running into this medic from Volantis, Talisa Mager. She's out there, and you know she's just kind of like a neutral party. Like I don't think she's like for either side, but you know she's doing what she can, and she's patching people up. So right now she's helping Rob's troops, right?
Yes.
And so I don't know if she necessarily has like a stake in either side, but she's just like, you know, doctors are needed, and here I am. So so she's like patching people up, and I think Rob, you know,
Rob starts taking a shine to her.
Yeah, immediately. Like he sees her and he's just like, damn, like she's...
And yeah, I agree. That was the start of a huge mistake.
That was the beginning of the end for Rob. So there was almost like a definitive moment for Ned and for Rob, which is kind of funny. Like father, like son, right?
Yeah. And it's funny because Sansa actually touches on that way later. I want to say the last season. And Jon is doing stuff, and Sansa's kind of disagreeing. And Sansa's like, I don't want you to make the same mistakes
that my brothers did. Or the men.
That Rob and,
Yeah, the men in my family have done. Yeah, I remember that line. All right, your turn.
Oh, okay. So this was kind of just for me, and not necessarily a super important, you know, part of the show. It's more for these people's development. But was it when Rob's gone or something? Catelyn makes a deal to trade Jaime for Sansa and Arya, and Brienne is taking Jaime to King's Landing to trade for Sansa and Arya.
Right.
And that is the whole start of the whole Brienne and Jaime thing. And I feel like Brienne kind of, she's badass, first of all, but I feel like she kind of brought out the best in Jaime, like what little good there was in Jaime, you know what I mean?
Because up until this point, he was firmly a villain of the show. He was an antagonist.
Yeah. And then they started, you know, creating a little relationship and even defending each other and protecting each other. You know, eventually, like their relationship kind of lasts till the end, and then he makes a classic Jaime move and leaves. He totally should have stayed with her if he wanted any sort of future, and he ditches her to go die with his evil twin sister.
Yep, so dumb. Yeah, I definitely have something to say about that when we get to it.
Yeah.
So that's when their kind of relationship begins this episode. Is this episode 9 or
8?
8. Okay.
And honestly, that was the last thing that I bolded for the rest of the season.
No way. Okay. I have one more for this season. Episode 9, Blackwater. So I wanted to bring this up because this is like a big deviation from the show. So this is the big battle of Blackwater Bay that happens by King's Landing.
With the wildfire?
Yes. So I think that was a strategy that Tyrion came up with, right? Wasn't he the one that like, what the fuck is this green shit down here? And he asked Cersei, and Cersei's like, well, you know, it's that old wildfire that they made back in the day, and I just had them keep making it. So like, he's like, fuck, we should use this. And so this is our first glimpse of what wildfire is, and it's fucking badass. Like, it is. It's like more effective than a bomb, right? Because it just continues burning like just as hot hours later, it seems like.
Yeah, it doesn't go out easy. It's very, very hot.
And it's cool because it's green. It's like bright green. And so you definitely notice it whenever anyone uses wildfire. This is Stannis' fleet, right? That's assaulting King's Landing?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so this is like Stannis' first big defeat when in his pursuit of the throne. And so he gets his troops essentially get wiped out with this wildfire. I think some of the ships reach the shore, and so they start charging the gates, and the Hound, Sandor Clegane, isn't he in charge of the troops? And so he's supposed to lead the charge, but I think Sandor's like, fuck this, and he just bounces, right?
Because he's afraid of the fire.
Yeah.
Because
of his
that's
injury.
why his face is all messed up.
Mm-hmm.
is because he was burned when he was young.
So I think there's two reasons. So there's the fire, which he's just like, you know, he's really has some PTSD when it comes to fire because his older brother,
Definitely.
the mountain, like held his face or whatever in fire, and so his face got all fucked up. So that's reason one. But I think also two, he realized that he doesn't want to lose his life for Joffrey. He's like, who the fuck is this kid? I'm not dying for this kid, you know? And so that's when he just like says, I'm out, and goes AWOL, you know, like he abandons his post. So you think that like, man, I think Stannis' troops are still going to take King's Landing somehow, until Tyrion, you know, he steps up because everyone always underestimates him. He stands up and he's just like, you know what? Like, if no one's going to lead the charge, I guess I have to do it because I don't want King's Landing to fall either. And so everyone, you know, the troops are just kind of like, they're in shock. You know, Tyrion, like he arms himself and he leads the charge out there, and you know he doesn't really do much, but I think his like pep talk and his show of courage was enough to get the Red Cloaks like amped up, and they're able to, you know, fight to the best of their ability. And this is where Tyrion gets that injury to his face. So he's supposed to get his nose cut off.
Right.
That's how it's described in the books. He's supposed to be like hideous after this fight. So he's supposed to get his nose cut off, but in the show he just gets slashed across his face. And so he has that like that scar.
Yeah, and I feel like that's when Tyrion, you know, starts he starts gaining some valuable life experience there.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah, because he had to really, I think he proved to himself how courageous he can be too, because he knew that he was intelligent, but I don't know if he knew how courageous he truly was until this moment. And he rose to the occasion, you know, and like I said, he didn't really contribute much to the battle, but I think just him proving to himself how courageous he can be, that's going to lead him to continue being courageous later on in the show.
I agree. And I'm totally going to touch on that again later. But I did want to mention, I wrote down actually, you know, the whole battle with the wildfire and everything. And I was like, who really won in that? I don't feel like there was really...
I think Stannis definitely lost because he didn't take King's Landing. But, you know, there was definitely a lot of casualties on both sides.
Yeah, I don't feel like either of them really got anywhere. You know, they kind of ended at the same place that they started.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I did want to mention because we continue Daenerys's development too, but she takes who's left, right? Who's left to follow her or whatever? Not that many people, like some.
Oh yeah, because the Dothraki troops, I think, once the cowl leaves, then the troops go find a different cowl to follow, like a stronger one, because it's always about strength for them.
I can't remember what it's called, but she ends up in that weird city in the desert that's led by those super creepy dudes. Well, anyway, the important thing is that at some point they steal her dragons. The guy, the one of the 13, what's his name, Zaro, and he eventually tries to overthrow everybody and become the leader. And in the end, she's able to lock him into the vault with, I think she finds...
But I want to say Astapor was like that.
She locks two people in this vault. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
She locks two people in the vault. She gets her dragons back, locks them in the vault in retribution. And I'm thinking, like, that is so... Like, obviously he deserves it. Again, he deserves it.
Yeah.
But it was also pretty dang messed up because, first of all, they're going to starve to death in there. And second of all, they're going to have to eat each other before they eventually starve to death in there.
Yeah, I want to say I don't know if I could defend that one for her, because that's a really fucked up way to go out.
Exactly.
I know that she wanted to,
like, they deserve it, but
yeah, like she wanted it to be like almost like a poetic ending for them, because like that's what they kind of tricked people with, was that vault, and there was nothing in it, right?
Yes.
And so she was like, well, since this was how you always tricked people, this is what's gonna end up killing you. But yeah, I think in the end she probably should have just like beheaded them or hanged them or something, you know?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty dang weird. We move on to season 3.
Season 3. So, do you want to start this one, or you want me to start? I have episode 2.
Yeah, me too, actually.
Ooh, Dark Wings and Dark Words.
This is where Bran and crew meet up with, what's his name? Jojen? Isn't that what it is?
And
Jojen
Yara, I think.
No, not that's Theon's sister. Jojen and dang, what is her name? Maybe it's
Mira. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So I just wrote down Bran gets a teacher. So that's cool. Yeah, and he gets somebody that he can start developing his skills
is he
with,
warging by this time?
Important. Yeah, he's warging by that. No, is Bran? No, I don't think Bran's warging
but
by then.
he sees what warging is for the first time. I think they kind of foreshadow because he has these dreams that he's like seeing stuff from like a wolf's perspective, but you don't realize that that's him warging into summer.
Yeah. Yeah, he just doesn't know. He develops that skill, obviously. And then I didn't actually bold this, but just to point out just that Theon, we start seeing the Theon transition to Reek situation. He's captured by Ramsay at that point, but he doesn't know. He just knows he's captured and he's tortured. And one interesting thing to point out is that the way they had to do it in the show kind of ruins the way it happens in the book.
Oh.
I haven't read it, obviously, but what I heard from people who have read the series up to the current point is that you just get, at some point in the book, you just get introduced to a new character, and that character's name is Reek.
So that's an entirely different character?
No, you think it's an entirely different character, and you eventually find out.
Oh, that's cool.
That is Theon.
Well, obviously you can't do that in the show because you're like, I see who this guy is.
Exactly. Yeah. So they couldn't do that big reveal like in the book.
It would just be impossible to do, like unless he wore like a mask or something,
Yeah, or like they just had it, from his point of view for a really long time until he eventually, something like that. Yeah, so that was episode 2.
Yeah, I definitely brought this episode up because, man, this is when Theon gets captured and is tortured by unknown captors, and man, he gets fucked up.
He sure does.
Many times, actually. So these are the Boltons, right? Because he's actually strapped to like that X, almost like a crucifix, but it's like in the shape of an X. And so the flayed man is the sigil for House Bolton because they always torture people on that X. And so that House Bolton is just like notorious for their torture methods. So, he's being tortured, and you don't really know, at least for the audience, I feel like, that hasn't read the books, like at this point, you don't know that's the Boltons. You just think like it's like some weird motherfuckers that are just like torturing him for their own pleasure. And, you see that he's strapped to an X, but you don't understand what that means. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
And then eventually, that does lead up to someone kind of taking pity on him and freeing him, leading him out to essentially lock him back up because that's just like the game this guy wants to play.
Exactly. It's just all a mind.
And who's
fuck.
This motherfucker? The sick motherfucker?
Ramsay
Bolton.
Well, I guess Ramsay Snow? Is he Snow at the time? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So he's a Snow.
Yeah. He doesn't become a Bolton until way later. So Ramsay Snow.
Right now, the most hated character in the show is Joffrey. Hands down, Joffrey, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because there's a handoff at some point where Ramsay becomes the main villain, and I just love Ramsay as the villain.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. And he's such a great actor too. Actually, he's in a British show that I really liked, and for the life of me, I can't remember right now. But he plays a totally different character in this British show, and I love him in that show. He's such a good actor.
He is. He emotes really well, and he plays crazy really well.
Oh, it's the Misfits.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, I also have episode 3. Do you have episode 3?
Yes.
Okay.
We are introduced to the Unsullied and Missandei.
This is really cool because this is when Daenerys actually starts to gain some power, like some real power. She starts
gaining some traction. And she does it in a crazy way.
Because her dragons right now are like really tiny. They're like smaller than a house cat. And so they can't really do much, right? But you know damn well that like if these guys get bigger, they're going to wreck stuff. So right now she can't really use them as weapons. So she's still kind of, and she only has like a couple of like Dothraki with her, but mostly like women and children. So she doesn't really have like warriors on her side.
Yeah.
But and that last town that she went to, Astapor, right, with the vault.
Yeah.
They had nothing. Like it's like that whole city is one giant
mirage.
It seems grand from the outside, and everyone dresses nice, and they act like there's a lot of shit that they can offer, but when it comes down to it, they didn't have anything. She wants to gain enough power so that way she can leave Slaver's Bay and make it to Westeros. So, she's still far from that at this point.
Oh, yeah.
She eventually gets to, what town is this one now?
I think
This
this
is
one is
Yunkai.
Yunkai.
Now she gets to Yunkai, and this is where she's introduced to the Unsullied, which are just like these badass, well-trained warriors. I kind of think of them, like I think of Yunkai as almost like this military state where their main export is like soldiers, right? They produce these like just fearless, emotionless soldiers that just get shit done. So,
and they also happen to have a slave problem.
They're essentially just slaves. Like they are like sold to whoever the highest bidder is, and then they have to do whatever that person tells them.
I guess I should say a slaver problem. I'm making it sound like the slaves are the problem. They have a
slavers,
problem.
So this is when you really start getting a sense of like how many slavers there are, right? Because there are a lot of like high, like really wealthy slavers here.
Yes.
And they control the Unsullied. So how does Daenerys go about gaining the Unsullied?
She tries to buy an army of Unsullied by trading stuff, including one of her dragons. And she also wants to buy Missandei because she's a good translator and stuff. But another big thing is that we get a little character development in Jaime when he loses his hand, which was basically his whole identity.
This was another like holy shit moment because it just comes out of nowhere. Like Jaime,
and he's protecting Brienne at the time, gets his whole hand cut off.
You start seeing like this other side to Jaime.
Yeah, because she was about to get raped, and then Jaime stops it, and then the dude cuts off his hand, and of course he starts spiraling because that was his fighting hand, and that's basically his whole identity is, his ability to fight.
This was such a crazy scene to me because the way they set it up is they're like at night at this campfire, and Jaime and Bran are like bound to different trees, right? Like tree trunks.
I think that don't they make Brienne get in a dress or something like that?
I don't know if it went.
And they're starting to. I feel like that was that part, and then they're starting to find out about her family
in Tarth, right?
Yeah.
So, well, I think she doesn't bring it up. Jaime brings it up because he's like trying to like talk his way out of it, and he's like, dude, do you know who she is? Like, if you harm her in any way, you're not going to be able to take advantage of like the jewels or something that Tarth can provide, because she's the daughter of like a highborn or something over in Tarth, and so like they have like just an ocean of jewels, that would make all of you guys rich, and so they're just kind of, I like how they like toy with the idea, making it seem like like is Jaime really going to talk his way out of this, because he's always known for having that silver tongue, and he's really witty, and I feel like he's always had his way, which is.
Yeah, he's very charismatic.
That really works against him in this episode because they all know who he is, and they know that he's like this spoiled rich kid that like always got his way, and he's like, you ain't getting your way this time. And so they make it seem like they're freeing him, and they're like, are you hungry too? And he's like, yeah, man, I'm really hungry. Like I could go for some food right now. He's like, yeah, just sit down over here and then we'll get you some food. Is there anything else you need? And
he should have been like, He should, red
flag. Red flag's around, but
serious red flag.
They're really buttering him up, getting him to drop his guard, and then out of nowhere, they just like hold him down, and then they just chop his arm off, and that's the end of the episode.
In a split second.
It takes a second for him to realize because he's in shock, but so he lifts up his arm, and it, like from mid forearm down is gone, and he's just like, ah! And then the scene just ends. What the fuck? They really cut off his arm right now? Yes, holy shit. Yeah, that was a dope episode.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that just happened.
Yep. that definitely just happened. And there's no talking your way out of that.
Nope. Yeah, he couldn't talk that hand back on.
And you know what also happened? Episode 5.
Dang, what about episode 4?
Do you have episode 4?
Yeah, that's where Daenerys makes her big reveal, her trick.
Ooh, okay.
Yes. So she gets her army of Unsullied. She kills all the slavers, and then obviously she gets her stuff back, and then frees the army, frees the Unsullied. You're not slaves anymore. Mm-hmm. But you can choose to fight for me, or you can go free. And they choose to fight for her.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think this is the first time they actually get to think for themselves, and I felt like that was a big choice for them. They could have just ran away and stopped fighting, but you know what? In a way, they understand that this is kind of what they are now. There's no going back. Like they're just these they're born to just fight, and they're good at fighting. And so if they're going to fight for anyone, they might as well fight for her.
Yeah. So here's the thing about that, though. First of all, just killing all of the slavers was a crazy ass thing to do. It was a crazy ass thing to do. But it also doesn't work. And she keeps getting word that Yunkai and whatever other place it is that I can't remember, they keep reverting back to slavery over and over. And then they go back and they kill the slavers again, and then they revert back to slavery. So it's all kind of crazy, right?
Is this also around the time that she runs into Dario Naharis?
Eventually. I want to say it's the beginning of the next season, but through the next 2 or 3, all the way out, I want to say through season 5, basically until she leaves Marine, she's dealing with this craziness of,
they're like roaches
of them reverting back to slavery, and of her trying to like stamp it down.
Yeah.
And it's not freaking working. It's not freaking working.
I loved this season. So I only chose like 4 or 5 events per season, but man, this one was really tough. That's why I didn't choose episode 4, is because there was just, you know how I feel about Ygritte. So I had to choose episode 5, Kissed by Fire. And this is the infamous cave scene.
Yes, I actually wrote down, this is what I wrote down, ready? Mm-hmm. Jon and Ygritte totally get it on the show and in real life.
Mm-hmm. This is like what leads to them actually getting together, huh? Is because they work so closely with each other. And so this is also why I felt like this is one of the best relationships that were developed on the show, was because this is like a romantic scene that I think is still at the top. Out of like all the ones on the show, this is like up there. This has to be like 1 or 2. This was like one of those hot scenes where you're just like, damn, like, all right, 2 attractive people going at it. I ain't mad at it. So, and this was, it was like such a romantic setting as well, because it's like they're off to the side, the rest of the wildlings are like in their camp, and then so they run away into this cave. She's like, hey, I want to show you something. And so there's like this hot spring in this cave, and she just starts stripping down, and they just go at it.
She's like, I want to show you something. It's your virginity, and it's gone.
Damn. So I definitely want to give a shout out to the cave, because, that cave scene.
The infamous cave. And interesting, because everybody was shipping Jon and Ygritte. I was over here shipping Jaime and Brienne.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, which totally eventually happens. Woo!
Yeah. So that's the one that you were just waiting for.
Oh, yeah. And I had to wait all the way until season 8 for that to happen. And then Jaime just fucked it up.
It was disappointing. So I also have, I know you're just waiting until you can get to the big episode. So I also have episode 6, The Climb. Mm-hmm. This is why I literally wrote down my notes. Drop the motherfucking scythe.
Oh, man.
This was probably one of the coolest fight scenes I've seen in the whole show. And it's like one of the most grand, like in scale, because this is where the wildlings, they finally reach the wall and they start scaling the wall. Uh-huh. So they're trying to storm Castle Black. And so Jon and Ygritte and Tormund, they're like trying to climb the side of the wall so that way they can take Castle Black. This is when you find out that the Night's Watch have this ace in the hole, this like secret weapon that they've never mentioned until this episode. And it was such a cool concept, because I'm like, damn, like I don't think I've ever seen that in like a high fantasy type of setting. But essentially this is like an anchor that's attached to the side of the wall that's always just like prepped and ready to go. So one of the Night's Watch, he's like, drop the scythe. And that they wait until the wildlings are about like halfway up the wall. And this is already like a very difficult wall to climb as it is. And then on top of that, when they drop the scythe, it's like this giant like ship anchor that just skids across the side of the wall and just
knocks everybody
vaporizes everything in its path. And I was like my mind was blown when I saw that. I was like, what the hell? Are you serious? And yeah, it was so cool. I loved it.
That is clever. Yeah, that is pretty clever. A good defense.
Definitely. Now we can get to the big episode that I know you've been waiting for. Episode 9, is that the one you're talking about?
Oh, I know. I just want to mention. No, it totally is. But I just want to mention real quick that they decide to marry Sansa to Tyrion. At this point, Marjorie's at King's Landing making her power moves after Renly died and she became a widow.
And Joffrey already like tossed Sansa aside. Like he's like, I'm not gonna marry you.
Yeah, I mean, they were still kind of like, they would still kind of mention it every once in a while, like, oh yeah, we're still trying to put Sansa with Joffrey or whatever. But nobody had any intention anymore of them actually getting married. And so Marjorie comes and she basically takes Sansa's spot. And so they're like, well, we got to do something with Sansa, but we don't want to just give her up. And so they have her marry Tyrion to try and, I don't know, keep the two families involved with each other, I guess. I think they were just fucking with her.
You think so? I felt like
Marjorie... They had their quote-unquote reasons.
Marjorie was really intelligent, though. Like, she knew how to play the game.
Oh, yeah.
She knows how to play the Game of Thrones, you know?
She was playing the game hard.
So I think she also did that with Renly, and she was perfectly fine finding out that he was a homosexual. So she was like, yeah, I get that you're with my brother.
And with her brother.
Yeah, you're with my brother. That's fine. Like, just as long as, like, I still get to be queen, it's fine. She makes her next move, which is to marry Joffrey. And, she even asks Sansa, like, what should I watch out for? Like, what's up with this guy? And Sansa's like, I don't want to say. And she's like, Marjorie and her grandmother, I forgot what her name was. Olenna, yeah. They're like, no, please, like, you need to tell us. And so that's when they get the inside scoop.
Yeah. But Marjorie's able to navigate all that.
Yeah, she is. And she's
gracefully.
She's able to, like, manipulate Joffrey, which is pretty cool to see. Like, you feel like Joffrey was kind of untouchable, but, like, the way that she plays it, she doesn't go at him head on. Like, she's like, I'm going to, like, make you think that you have control, but I really have control.
Exactly. It's nice. Yeah, it's very, very refreshing.
I think it was refreshing for him, too, because on top of... She didn't back down to, like, Joffrey's authority or anything, and she kind of still did her own thing, and she was a positive example for Joffrey, and he was kind of, like, warming up to her. He's like, okay, you're actually, like, helping the people? What a novel idea.
She's playing him, but she's also gaining the love of the people. So, yeah, the Red Wedding.
Ooh, episode 9, The Reigns of Castamere.
Oh, man. So they end up back at the Freys.
The twins, yep.
The twins, that's what it is. So Walder Frey, right, is like super pissed that he ended up marrying somebody else and got her pregnant and completely...
Just broke off that deal.
Yeah, to marry one of his daughters. And so he plans this whole dinner. And what whose wedding was it? Wasn't it one of his daughters with somebody else?
This was Edmure. Edmure marrying one of the... So that was
the daughters, yes.
Catelyn's brother?
Tully, yeah.
Tully, yeah.
Right? Okay, so they're at that, and then all the doors are barred, and everybody just gets absolutely slaughtered. This
whole episode was the Reigns of Castamere was essentially just setting this whole red herring, this trap up, and it was masterfully done. This was the exact moment that I was 100% into the show. I was like, I'm locked in. I'm sticking out to the end because
it lost so many people in this episode because, obviously for me, I had already let go because after Ned died, I learned my lesson. But so many people, and I remember so many people just outraged on Facebook and stuff. Just when Talisa got stabbed in the stomach, pregnant woman getting stabbed in the stomach. So many people were like, well, I'm out.
Damn. Yeah, that's true. That's a touchy subject to actually play out and show in such a gruesome way on the show.
And, I might have been too, had I been a mother at the time, because I recall the friends that I had that were bowing out at that point were mothers.
Oh, damn.
And I was not yet a mother. Had I been a mother at the time, I might have been, right there along with them. But I wasn't yet, so I kept going.
I feel like that's about as far as you can get without, like, slitting a little kid's throat on the show, Like, this is about as close as you can get to that.
But, I mean, kids do die. Kids do die in this show. I mean, we have Shireen.
Rickon.
Shireen, Stannis' daughter. We also have Ramsay's brand new baby brother. So, kids die in the show.
This episode was, like I said, this is when I was locked in. And because all of season 1, I felt like... When I watched it the first time, I was like, this show's okay. It's kind of slow. Like, I don't really get what's happening because I didn't understand the background to all the characters. And you were actually the one that suggested I watched the show initially. So you're like, yeah, there's this new show. Like, it's really popular. You should get into it. And I'm like, what's it about? And I remember you describing it to me. You're like, there aren't really, like, main characters. Like there's just like a bunch of like families that kind of like have their own problems, and it follows each of them, and then they don't really, a lot of them don't really interact.
It is hard to describe, and this is probably the first show also that not only were there so many characters to keep track of, but they all have weird ass names, and so like half the time I was like, I don't know who the hell's who.
Exactly. Like me watching it for the first time, I'm like, who the fuck is Jamie? What? I'm like, okay, whatever. And so when you were describing it to me, I was like, that sounds like the stupidest show I've ever heard in my life. What
Obviously,
the hell?
I did an amazing job of describing it.
Well, I mean, you're like how you're saying, it's hard to describe. Like that's essentially, like, you weren't wrong. That's kind of how I would describe it to other people too. Like it's a high fantasy show about like these families, and it's like a political show. It's all about people like trying to vie for that power.
Yeah.
And, and like how you're saying, like some of the characters never interact. Cause I think by this point it was like season 2. So, Daenerys was like nowhere near Westeros at all. So it's like, yeah, you got someone that's like on a different continent that's like doing her own thing. And I'm like, who the hell thought this was a good idea? This show sounds stupid. And so I didn't eventually get into it until my wife Brenda was like, hey, we got to watch this show. And I'm like, oh, I think that's the show that Steph was talking about. When she was working at her old job, I think her coworkers are saying like, yeah, you should get into Game of Thrones. It's really cool. And mind you, Brenda hates high fantasy. So her coming to me saying like, we should watch this high fantasy TV show. Really? Like
that's pretty big. Yeah.
Because for me, I can sit through a high fantasy, but that's
where she draws the line.
Basically, like no chance of that happening. So her suggesting it, I'm like, okay, yeah, we'll give it a shot. So then
this is pretty much, yeah. I feel like it kind of eases you into all the high fantasy stuff because you've got the White Walkers there, sure, and I feel like that plays on like the popularity of zombies at the time. I think that was around the time, because this show started around the time that my husband Andrew and I started dating, and he has always been super into zombies, and that was around the time that Walking Dead started getting really popular and zombies kind of blew up.
Oh, that was like right after like Walking Dead season 1 or 2, around there?
It was, okay. Yeah. Season 1 happened right around the time where Andrew and I met.
Okay.
And so I feel like I felt like the whole White Walkers thing was playing on the popularity of zombies at the time. And then it kind of eased you into like the dragons and Melisandre and the weird magic and, things like that. Like, I feel like it kind of eased you in. Like, it was in kind of like a medieval sort of fantasy setting, but with, in regards to like the high fantasy, like all the magic and stuff like that, it really eased you into that.
Yeah. And, for me, I've never really been like super into the swords and sorcery or whatever, like the medieval times type stuff. But, my wife is like even less into that stuff. So Brenda was, I think by the time we finished season 1, I was confused, but I'm like, you know what?
Same.
I'm already invested. I'll just continue watching. Brenda was kind of like ready to call it quits after season 1.
She was like, I regret this decision.
I'm like convincing her. I'm like, let's give it another season. If it's still not good, then we'll just stop.
I too found season 1 to be quite slow. Honestly, it was kind of the whole death of Ned thing and just me kind of letting go of my emotional feelings for anything. I was like, all right, I can keep going.
Season 2, I think we weren't fully locked in, but then by the time the Red Wedding hit, I was like, yep, I'm in. I'm sticking through to the end.
You horror fan people. a huge massacre? Yes, I'm in.
Because that setup, like how I was saying before, it was just so masterful because the whole ruse is the wedding. You got Ed Muir, and you just think you're not thinking anything of it. Obviously, this is like towards the end of the season, so you're like, okay, I expect some big events to happen, but it's essentially just like this harmless wedding, and Walder Frey is like, oh, you know what? It's water under the twins. It's water under the bridge. He's just like, just help join us in celebrating Edmure Tully's wedding to one of my daughters. And so he's like, yeah, I'll be down for that. And I thank you for being so understanding. Like I meant no disrespect by it, but I just,
you fell in love.
I can't control who I love. Yeah. And so, he felt that was it. They buried the hatchet, but Walder was like,
nope.
He did not take it well. So he set up this whole plan,
he was out for blood.
Right. Around this time, I think he was kind of leaning more towards the Starks cause. But then after he heard about that, the deal breaker that's when he committed to the Lannisters. And that's also, I think, when the Boltons joined the Lannister side. So the Boltons also helped set this up. And they were like diehard for the Starks for a while there. And then you get that hint that something's about to happen because they're all like kind of like enjoying dinner, everyone's dancing, whatever. They carry the bride and groom away. You don't really notice, but like all of the Freys left. So all that's left are like the Starks and like their bannermen, right?
Yeah.
And so they lock the doors, and Roose is in there too. But like he kind of sits next to Catelyn, and he's just like, "Hey, check it out." And so the sleeve gets pulled back, and you see that he's wearing armor. You only put that on when you're ready to fight. The musicians, they start playing the Lannister theme, which is the Reigns of Castamere. Right. Yeah. Yep. That's when Talise gets shanked. Robb gets like a bunch of arrows in him. Catelyn, desperately, she tries to make a deal. I think she steals Walder's young wife, and she's like, I'm gonna kill her if you don't let us go. And he's just like I care. Like, I've been married to her like all of like a week. Who cares? And then so they end up killing Robb, and then Catelyn gets her throat slit. And that's it. That's the end of them.
Man. And like I said, lost a lot of viewers.
It may have been way too graphic for some people, because I think up until then, that was probably like the most graphic thing we've seen, right?
Yeah, and the people who stayed were the strong ones.
Oh yeah. All right, season 4.
Dang. Okay, so basically, the next thing that I found so satisfying was episode 2.
Okay.
Well, I'll just mention that Theon is fully Reek at this point. But then the purple wedding happens. So Marjorie and Joffrey's wedding happens. And here is where I almost stopped watching. And you know why?
Oh, why?
It is actually because at the time I was in CLS school. And I had classmates that were also super into the show. Mm-hmm. And so obviously they were watching. Oh, actually, you know what? It wasn't a classmate. It was somebody else on Facebook. Basically spoiled it for me on Facebook. And I was waiting for Joffrey's death. Like, I was so excited for it to eventually.
I hate people like that. They just don't consider anyone else. They're just like, yeah, like Joffrey dies or whatever.
And he was basically like, finally Joffrey got, deserved it. He got what was coming to him.
I fucking hate that shit.
It just completely ruined it for me. Yeah. And I was so livid.
He just said it out loud in front of everyone?
It was on Facebook.
Oh, on Facebook, okay. Like, why do people think that others want stuff spoiled for them? Like, what I typically do is I'll say like, hey, have you seen this episode yet?
Yeah.
And if not, I don't say like, oh, you're in for something good. I say like, okay, well, let me know when you watch it, and then I'll talk about it with you.
So like that, this event basically was actually sparked my deep hatred of people who spoil things online.
Yeah. I don't know how I went so far in the show without having much spoiled for me. I'm going to actually talk about one later on, but and I'll tell you who spoiled it for me. But for the most part, around the time I got into Game of Thrones, I think was Cersei's atonement walk. I was pretty far behind, and I was playing catch up, and I felt like for the most part, like pretty much none of it was spoiled for me except for like one or two things, which weren't like that big. So Cersei's atonement walk was spoiled for me, and one other thing which I'll get to once we get to that season.
But I just wish like I never got to get that initial shock like everybody else did. So I don't know how it felt to watch it happen with everybody else and then feel that shock. I
actually got to experience it because by that point everyone was already like way past Joffrey's death.
So no
one was talking about it anymore. Yeah. And so I went in and watched it, and I was just like, damn, that was crazy. But
tell me how you felt.
It was pretty awesome because you're like, fuck yeah. Because he was such a piece of shit in that episode. He was like, you felt so bad for Tyrion because in this episode, Joffrey, he's like such a fucking asshole to Tyrion, and he belittles him so much. Doesn't he do like that like weird like midget show?
Yeah.
And
he suggests that Tyrion get in it.
Yeah, like he's like, you join them, you're one of them, type of thing. And Tyrion's just kind of like biting his tongue. But then he does that
pours wine on his head.
He does the whole like pour me a drink. Or doesn't Marjorie give him a drink?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
That was planned because around that time, that was where Olenna, she plants the poison in the drink. Mm-hmm. And then she probably tells Marjorie, like, here, give him this drink. Make sure he drinks it. And so he was like, all right, cool, whatever. He takes a sip. He trusts Marjorie. That's when he gets poisoned. and he's like, his throat's like closing up and he's like turning purple, he can't breathe, and everyone thinks that it was Tyrion that like they're like, you always hated Joffrey, you always like talked down on him, you always disrespected him, and you must have been the one. Cersei is just like adamant that Tyrion was behind it.
Right. Regardless, he's forced to flee, and Sansa takes the opportunity to also flee.
Yep. I also want to mention really quick, this was the moment that they passed the torch of like main villain to Roose, or to Ramsay, because by this time Ramsay, I think this is where he castrates Theon, like actually castrates him.
Right.
This is kind of like the exact moment that they kill off the biggest villain of the show so far, and then they're already like building up his replacement. And Ramsay, I think in a lot of ways was even more dislikable.
Yeah.
You know what made him so dangerous was the fact that not only was he a piece of shit, but he could back it up. He was dangerous.
Yeah, exactly. Because, Joffrey was just a little twat. Like, he was just a sadistic little kid. But Ramsay was a sadistic man with actual resources to back that up. And
skills, like he could fight.
The next episode, Daenerys is on her way to... I didn't actually bold this part, but it's part of my Daenerys is crazy argument.
Okay.
So they're on their way to the next city, which I cannot remember its name. Why didn't I write it down? But anyway, they're on her way there. They're on their way there, and at every mile marker, they have a slave child crucified. Mm-hmm. So it's 163 total. And when she takes over that place, she has 163 masters crucified for those slave children, retribution or whatever. And yeah, again, like everyone kind of just, Daenerys is, she's showing her power. They deserved it. Mm-hmm. But seriously, that was nuts. Like she could have just had them executed. No, she had them crucified. The thing that I did have bolded for this episode, we find out why the White Walkers are taking the babies.
Oh, this is the first time that they show what they do with them.
Yeah, and so is it the Night King or just some random White Walker or whatever? But he touches the baby's forehead and it turns them into because they have the whites. WIGHT white.
And those are just the zombies, like the cannon fodder.
And then eventually you find out that they're connected to the White Walkers, and so like when like the head White Walker dies, all the whites drop dead.
That's cool. So it's whoever they turn.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think
that's their army.
So then, and I guess I'll mention that a little bit more later. But then you have the whites, and then you have the White Walkers, and then you have the Night King. Huge spoiler, but when Arya eventually kills the Night King, all of the White Walkers go down. The
White Walkers, I think they have a connection with whoever they turn, but the Night King can turn anyone. Like anyone that's like dead, he just like raises. So he has like a connection to all of them because he was the OG, the original White Walker. Exactly.
The one that was turned by the
children of the forest, yeah. Which is interesting. If you don't know what the lore is behind that, the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers to combat the First Men, right?
Yeah.
Because the First Men were like essentially invading Westeros, and so they were killing off all the Children of the Forest because they're not combative, they're not there to fight, so they had to find a way to defend themselves. Mm-hmm. And that they just ended up creating a monster that got out of control.
Sure did. So yeah, they're taking the babies and they're turning them into little baby walkerlings. Mm-hmm. And then the next thing I wrote down was in episode 8.
Ooh, okay. So I have episode 7.
Okay.
So episode 7, Mockingbird. And the reason why I like this episode is because I have this weird fascination with the moon door.
Oh,
and I don't know why, but that's just like such an interesting concept to me because it's unique from like all the other forms of death that the other cities provide. The Vale is like the only place that this can be done essentially because it's like a fortress up in the mountains, like the high mountains.
Man, maybe that's why I didn't exactly like. Oh, I mean, because I wrote it down, but I didn't bold it. But that's since I'm afraid of heights.
Oh,
I do not approve of the moon door.
What's cool about the Vale too is that what the town's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the castle, the fortress, or whatever.
I forget that like it doesn't have like 2 names, so I thought it's also called something else. It's like I thought the Vale was like the region or something like that because they have the Reach, the Vale, all that stuff. And so, I think this town's called the Eyrie.
Yeah.
The Eyrie is within the Vale. The Vale is like the region. I think the Vale is like the mountainous region and the Eyrie is like the fortress.
The castle, right? Yeah.
So the Eyrie is interesting because it's described as like an impenetrable fortress. There's only like one way in because everywhere else is like just steep mountains. There's no way of
Yeah,
scaling that.
isn't there like a bridge you have to go across or something?
Not even a bridge. I think it's like this like deep valley. You can just get like bombarded because it funnels you. There's no way to like
it's a bottleneck.
storm the castle, and so it bottlenecks at the entrance, and then you can just get ambushed from the top of the mountain the whole time. And so it's basically like no one ever fucks with the Eyrie. And so on top of that, the castle's like at the very top of this mountain that like kind of overlooks the cliff. And the moon door is like a hole in the ground that they open up and they just toss people through.
Yeah, that's just a huge fuck now.
I love that like man baby who you know what I'm talking about, the son. Lysa's son. Robin, yeah, Aaron.
Yeah.
So Robin is like, he's like still breastfeeding at like 10 years old. It's crazy. 8 years old.
I want to say, yeah, I feel like he's 8.
And he's like next in line. He's a rightful heir because John Arryn, he was killed off before the start of the show.
Yeah, and he is a little pansy.
And not only that, but when Tyrion was still held captive, Robin was so quick to say, just toss him through the moon door. Like, I never forget that line, and it just cracks me for every single time when he's like, I want to see the little man fly.
Oh my God.
And so Tyrion's like, I don't.
Right?
Yeah, I have this fascination with the moon door, and I just think it's so unique and interesting. And so the fact that this is where that motherfucker Peter Baelish is like trying to manipulate Sansa, right? So he takes Sansa away from King's Landing, and he's like, I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take you home. But first, we're going to take a pit stop in the Eyrie to go visit your aunt. But she has this weird affair with Baelish. Like,
it was just super creepy. The whole thing was super creepy.
Yeah, it was just really awkward. Baelish like having this loud, vigorous sex with Lysa, and Sansa can hear it. Then he tries to like go and like seduce Sansa, and he's just like, yeah, you know, like I've always loved your mother, but you're like even more beautiful than she is. And he's like trying to like butter her up.
So creepy.
He makes a move. He kisses her, and Lysa sees it. And so later on that day, she threatens, instead of like confronting Peter about it, she confronts Sansa and is like, who the fuck are you homewrecker? You know, you come into my house and you're like trying to take my man and this and that. And so she's like trying to throw Sansa out the moon door. Peter comes in and he's like, what the fuck's going on? And so he de-escalates the fight. And then in a weird twist, he throws Lysa out the moon door.
Hallelujah. And that was just all so creepy. The whole thing. He deliberately puts himself in positions of maximum creepiness. Always.
And yet, the weird thing was that was Brenda's favorite character. She thought he was the hottest guy on the show.
What?
Yeah. I felt the same way. I'm like, how? But
he's so creepy.
Anyway, I also have episode 8. Do you have episode 8?
Yeah, I just mentioned the fight.
Yes. This episode is kind of special to me because this was the very first episode of Game of Thrones that I had ever seen. So
really,
not long after you suggested I watch the show and me basically saying no, I ain't doing that. My friend Cameron, I was over at his house and we're hanging out and he was like, hey, do you watch Game of Thrones? And I was like, no, not really. I've heard about it, but no, it's not really my thing. And he's like, bro, he's super into high fantasy. Like we used to watch shit like Legend of the Seeker all the time. And so, and we played video games that were like high fantasy themed as well.
Yeah.
He was like, bro, if nothing else, it's cool if you don't get into it, but you have to see this one episode, this one scene.
This one.
And so he shows me episode 8 is called The Mountain and the Viper, because this is where the Mountain and Oberyn Martell face off for Tyrion's freedom, right?
Yeah.
So Tyrion calls for...
So it's Tyrion against Cersei, right?
Mm-hmm. Trial by combat. And so Cersei's like... well, I'm choosing the mountain. No one can fucking take the mountain.
And Tyrion actually has trouble finding
his own champion, yeah. And so Oberyn doesn't volunteer for Tyrion. He volunteers because he wants to get his hands on the mountain.
Yes, because the mountain killed his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And not only that, but apparently he like raped her and he killed her children too, because he keeps reiterating that throughout the fight.
Yeah, so he ends up being able to stab the mountain with his poison spear, which does kill the mountain, but not before the mountain gets his hands on Oberyn's head.
This was such a cool fight because Oberyn walks in, no armor, no helmet, and
super cocky.
The mountain is like decked out. He's like this mountain of armor, you know?
Yeah.
The thing is, he's fucking slow, but also at the same time, he's virtually impenetrable. Oberyn he opts more for agility and speed over strength. And so, he just has his spear, and you kind of question it at first because Oberyn gets like backhanded once, and then, he kind of gets up, dust himself off. He's like, all right, that was a lucky shot. I'll give you that. But then after that, Oberyn starts like laying it on. And so that's when he's getting all like, it's almost like the death of 1,000 cuts. Like he's just getting like these little like cuts here and there. And he's like slowly breaking the mountain down. And it was such a cool fight scene because Oberyn is like such a charismatic character himself. And I was sad to see him go because he only really pops up in this season. Like he's introduced in this season and he's killed in this season.
Once, the mountain goes down, he starts gloating, and then the mountain...
That was his downfall, yeah. He got way too cocky.
Yeah, he gloated. If he didn't gloat, he probably would have been fine. But once he started gloating, that was when the mountain was able to, like, get the upper hand on him and literally crush his skull.
That was a fucking wild episode. But yeah, that was my introduction to the Game of Thrones. That was my very first episode, introduced by Cameron.
And you were like, well...
Yeah, and I remember watching that. I was like, damn, but that still wasn't enough to get me to watch it. It wasn't until Brenda finally convinced me, but I was like, I'm not going to lie, that was a trippy ass episode.
Yeah.
All right, what you got?
So then next we have the penultimate episode, right? Where, like usually the big thing kind of happens. So I feel like the whole Mountain and Oberyn thing, I feel like that was kind of like the big thing. Like a lot of people were still talking about that, but Castle Black gets attacked from the north and the south. And
around this time, this is where you think, man, the wildlings might actually finally win.
Yeah, and it was pretty, and it gave Jon a chance to, show, I guess, his development and his, new leadership skills or whatever, which eventually gets him the whole head spot, right?
Because he was rolling with the wildlings up until this point, and so he essentially betrays Ygritte right here.
Yes, and then he defends Castle Black from Ygritte and her people, and
Ygritte just hates him. Like she's just like, if I ever see him, I'm gonna fucking kill him myself.
Yeah, she's like, he's mine. Mm-hmm. And then when she gets her chance, she hesitates.
This is a special episode for me in a lot of ways because this is the last time you ever see Ygritte.
Yeah.
Alive anyway. But yeah, this was also the end of her and Jon's relationship because you thought it was over before, but she hesitates, and she in leading up to this, she shows that she's a badass archer. She's able to pick people off from like way out. Mm-hmm. I think she was the best archer like in the wildlings period, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone could touch her. So her and Tormund, right, are leading the charge from the south, and then there's still people trying to breach the wall from the north.
Yeah.
They break into Castle Black, and the Night's Watch are kind of defending from all sides.
Yes.
I think Jon, didn't he just get done fighting a Thenn? Like those like big ogre guys?
Did he?
Like I thought he was getting his ass kicked by a Thenn, and somehow like eventually the Thenn ends up dying. I think Ghost saves him.
Yeah.
Around this time.
Yeah, you're right.
So Ghost is there alongside fighting alongside Jon. In the middle of the battle, he just pauses because he locks eyes with Ygritte, and Ygritte has her crosshairs on him already. She's already drawn that bow, but like she can't do it. She's like, why the fuck can't I do it? And she's just like, you can tell she's trying to force herself to shoot Jon, but she can't do it. And Jon gives her that sad look. He's like, I still love you type of thing. Like, I didn't mean for any of this to happen. And, like, I actually do truly love you. And so she kind of reciprocates, like she kind of gives him that same look until Ollie shoots her in the back.
Yeah. And then she dies in Jon's arms, right?
Damn. Yeah. Jon, he rushes over there and he lifts her up, and she gives the final, like the last lines that she'll ever have on the show. She's like, we should have stayed in that cave. And he tells her, we'll go back there someday, trying to like ease her death. And I think she appreciates that, she was never really been the sappy type, and she knows that that's all Jon is. Like, Jon's a fucking sap. And so he's like, yeah, we'll go back there someday. Like, as if they're going to make it out of this alive. She's like, nothing, Jon Snow. And that was like the catchphrase throughout this season because she just kept saying that to him, nothing, Jon Snow.
That was definitely Jon Snow's motto, practically.
he really does know nothing.
Shining over his head. The next episode, I think the big thing for me was Tyrion's escape.
Episode 10, The Children, season finale.
So yeah, Daenerys is dealing with her stuff over there. She basically at this point she just decides to stay put. She goes to Marine and she just decides to stay put and rule there for whatever reason. Like kind of abandons her
Well,
whole
to your point, she wants to really
like develop.
get rid of the slaves, and
Yeah,
she wants to really just lock that down and get a hold of it. So she feels like before I can go to Westeros, I have to make sure I do this,
I can
at least
lead
for
kind of
myself.
thing.
Yeah.
And so she ends up having to chain up her dragons because they're killing and feeding all willy nilly, and they're like killing random people
Mhm.
and children and stuff like that. But then yeah, Tyrion makes his escape. Wasn't it like Jaime lets him out or something like that? But then he goes and kills Shay, his former lover turned against him, and his
That was
father.
this episode. Dang.
Damn. And I don't think he was gonna do anything, but like he found Shay there, and she said something to him, and that
She
pissed
said
him
something
off.
like, are you coming to bed, my lion, or something like that. And that was always what she called Tyrion. So that's what really broke his heart.
Oh. So yeah, so he kills them both. Great.
Yeah. Hell of a way to go out, because
Because he killed Tywin on the toilet.
yeah, while I was taking a shit, dude was
That was
constipated,
great.
man. Like he was trying to just like push one out, and he gets an arrow for it.
Well, I'm sure everything loosened up after that.
Probably did. So episode 2, The House of Black and White. What I wrote down for that one was Arya begins her faceless man training under Jaqen Hagar. And I feel like this is cool because up until now, Arya's just kind of like there, not really doing a whole lot. But this is the moment that she starts becoming badass. And I almost feel like she actually leapfrogs a lot of the other characters in like badassery once she's done with her training. So that's why I wanted to make sure I pointed that out.
And I agree with that too, because she was just doing a lot of kind of escaping and
Eluding.
traveling,
Mm-hmm.
and then finally she actually starts. And obviously she's growing. She's basically a little kid when she starts the show, and then she's growing into an adult. And I kind of feel like I don't even want to say she's growing into a woman. Obviously she is in some ways, but
So it's only been a couple of years, so she's still a teenager, right?
I think so. Well, yeah, I think so. But she spends a lot of time pretending to be a boy,
True.
and it's like she's starting to learn to be different identities from the beginning.
Yeah, she's already kind of a tomboy as it is,
That's
and
true. Yeah.
just by cutting her hair, a lot of people believe that she was a boy. And the other thing I wanted to mention for episode 2 was Jon becomes Lord
Yeah, I
Commander
guess
of
that's
the
important.
Night's Watch. And this is important to Jon because for the longest time he's always looked down on himself. He's like, I'm a bastard child. I'm never going to amount to anything. And he actually, this little bastard child managed to work his way up and become Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
It
So
is.
that's pretty
It's true.
impressive. But anyway, so that was episode 2 for me, and you had episode 3. You said,
Yeah. So what I had noted for episode 3 that I thought was important for Arya's future is that Arya can't get rid of Needle when she's instructed to get rid of all her personal ties and
oh,
also
she
all her
can't let
personal
go.
possessions.
That's
She
true.
can't. She gets rid of everything else, but she can't get rid of Needle, so she hides it. Keeps her tied to her former identity.
That had sentimental value. It wasn't just something material, that she wanted to hold on to. It was given to her by, was it Jon or was it Ned?
It was Jon.
Jon, okay.
But that's the thing. She was supposed to be getting rid of all of that stuff. She was supposed to be
Yeah.
getting rid of all those ties. It kind of reminded
Shedding
me.
her identity.
Yeah, it made me think of Jedi's, I guess, because we're also watching the Book of Boba Fett. And when you become a Jedi, you're supposed to get rid of all that. You're never supposed to fall in love. You're not supposed to be connected to any part of your, I guess, your personal
past
life.
self.
And that's why Anakin Skywalker falling in love becomes so problematic, and eventually leads to him becoming Darth Vader.
That's true, yeah.
So yeah, you can't become a faceless man unless you get rid of all of your personal ties and sentiments and stuff. So at least not fully, and Arya does a good job of demonstrating that.
So my next one is episode 6. I don't know if you had anything before that.
I did have episode 6.
Ooh, we both had episode 6, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken. So what I wanted to mention with this one, like how we're talking about the faceless men, the Wall of Faces is introduced, which is pretty cool because this is how they go around disguising themselves as other people, taking on different personas, is that they, after they kill someone, they cut off their face and then they keep it on this wall for when they need to become that person later on.
Yeah, and obviously you can't just throw on someone's face and look like them, so there's a bit more to it, there's some sort of magic involved. And yeah, this is where you find out that the faceless man isn't just some belief system or something like that. Like there's actually something behind it.
There's some weird, like, crazy dark magic behind it, because even Arya, you know, she's relatively small in stature, but she can impersonate people bigger than her in a believable way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like when she impersonates Walder Frey later and kills off his whole family, so that was great.
What's interesting about the Faceless Man, just like the name of the organization, is that in reality, they actually have many faces. So it's like the faceless part is like them having no identity themselves, but in reality, in actuality, they are many faces.
They become faceless so they can have all the faces, I guess.
Exactly, yeah.
Like a blank slate. We also see Ramsay and Sansa get married, which is weird, obviously, but it's also kind of I feel like it's like her final hurdle before she finally comes into her own.
Yep. Yeah, this is a big event, major event, because this is probably one of the most graphic scenes in the entire show. I think this episode hit a lot of people really hard, you know, because it's an extremely uncomfortable scene to watch. And if people don't know, this is when Sansa marries Ramsay Bolton. I guess this is what many call the Black Wedding. It's already kind of an uncomfortable wedding to watch because of how it's set up. So Baelish takes Sansa to Winterfell. He promised her he was going to take her home. And it just so happens that the Boltons have control of Winterfell around this time. So Baelish essentially throws Sansa to the wolves, and while trying to convince her that everything's gonna be fine. No, it's gonna be fine. Just marry Ramsay. He's a good-looking, nice young man. You know, around your age, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Not so much, Sansa, because the audience at this time already knows how psycho that motherfucker Ramsay is and how innocent Sansa is. And I'm not talking innocent like as in her virginity, but I mean like innocent as in her being naive and sheltered and weak-minded. You know?
Yeah, and still too trusting, I guess, but. Not that she really has a choice.
Yeah.
She can either trust somebody or be on her own, so.
Right, exactly. And then the end of the episode, after the Black Wedding, Ramsay basically just forces himself on Sansa and rapes her. But that's not even like the whole scenario. What makes it even more uncomfortable is that Theon, who's Reek around this time, is forced to stay in the room and watch. Ramsay orders him to stay in the room and watch him rape Sansa because he knows that Theon already knows Sansa from before. Mm-hmm. And that's just like a way of like playing mind games with both of them at the same time.
It's just another torture for him.
That's even, I think this is what really pushes Ramsay up past Joffrey in terms of like hatred, you know, like hated antagonist on the show, because you're just like, man, that's fucking savage. Like this guy has no heart.
And I feel like Reek kind of starts coming back to Theon a little bit there too, you know,
around this time, because he's crying, like he's trying to hold back the tears while he's watching. Like he's still obedient, but like he still feels the sadness for Sansa.
Yeah, and it's with Sansa that he starts kind of breaking rules and stuff.
She's the one that's able to bring back Theon Greyjoy.
A little bit, yeah. Not even his sister. I mean, not that he grew up with his sister, but when his sister comes and tries to rescue him, he, he doesn't go with her.
He's too scared of Ramsay, yeah.
That's crazy. He thinks that Ramsay's playing a trick on him. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Sansa's presence, he's able to start kind of coming back to himself as he tries to help her how he can, kind of.
So what you got next? I got episode 8.
7.
Ooh, okay. What you got?
Episode 7. Well, this was just kind of a note. It's not like a super big important event. But I just kind of note that Daenerys continues to try and rule Meereen. And, you know, she's got herself arranged to get married and everything like that. And I'm sitting here watching. I'm like, why does she keep trying? Like, I thought her whole goal was to go to Westeros and, you know, rule over the 7 kingdoms on the Iron Throne. in her rightful place or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Like, why is she sticking around?
Yeah. And so I guess she's just trying to build up her alliances, excuse me, build up her alliances, build up her support and her strength over there. And then, head over to Westeros already strong. But I feel like maybe she's just trying it out, trying ruling out for a little while. But I don't feel like she's doing so great. I mean, the other, all her areas that she's freed from slavery, they just keep reverting back to slavery.
And I think a lot is because she didn't really keep her authority there. She just left it alone for them to take care of themselves. And then eventually, obviously the people that were in charge before, they know how to gain power, and so they just regain power once
I mean, they just go back to their status quo, and it's like she keeps finding out, they reverted back to slavery, and then 2 or 3 times she has to send people back to just go and kill all the new masters or whatever she's doing, kill all the slavers and reinforce her rule. But it's just like that crazy zero tolerance stance isn't really working, so I just kind of pointed that out. Okay. And then episode 8.
Episode 8. Did you have this as well? Mm-hmm. Episode 8 is called Hardhome, and that's because that's the city that Jon and Tormund travel to north of the Wall in order to save as many wildlings as they can, because I guess this is kind of like the major town for the wildlings over there. And so they travel there because they know that the Night King and the White Walkers, they're on their way. They're heading towards Hardhome. So Tormund tells Jon, this is kind of where we all congregate. Let's travel there, pick up as many people as we can with boats, and then let's head back, before the Night King shows up. Unfortunately for them, things don't go smoothly, and the Night King and the Whites show up while they're there. This is a pretty awesome scene for me because this is the first major battle against the army of the undead that you see. Because, they have like these small encounters here and there, but they're more intimate encounters, right? Like it's only like a couple whites and they struggle with those, and they find out that, dragon glass can kill one, this and that. But
isn't this is this the one where he discovers that Valyrian steel works? Okay.
This is the one. Mm-hmm. And you know how I was talking before, like how there were a couple major events that were spoiled for me? So the first one was the Walk of Atonement. This was before I started watching the show.
Yeah.
So as I was watching Game of Thrones, and I was already, well past the Red Wedding, and I'm like 100% locked in, I would talk to Dad a lot about the episodes.
That's your mistake right there.
I was talking to Dad, and I usually he was pretty good because I'll tell him where I was at. This is what I've experienced so far, and then we'll just talk about those. But
every once in a while he'd slip up, right?
Yes, exactly. So he kind of gets his seasons mixed up sometimes. And he was like, is that the one where Jon kills the White Walker? And I'm like, what the fuck? I haven't seen that. And he's just like, it's not that big of a deal. It's just Valyrian steel can kill White Walkers. And I'm like,
oh my God.
That's kind of a big deal. What the hell? A big deal. I was like, up until then, all we know is that dragon glass is the only thing that can kill them. So it's like, that's kind of a big fucking deal, like someone is able to kill a White Walker.
Yeah.
So that was.
I think Sam accidentally kills one, doesn't he? At some point. When he
accidentally gets attacked, so he
has dragon glass.
Yeah, and that's when he's the first to find out that dragon glass can kill, because I think he just had it on him.
Well, he had it. It was given to him by one of the people up there, and he had like a bag of it, and so he once he
was just grabbing whatever he could.
Yeah, once he gets back to Castle Black, he tells everybody that the dragon glass works, and he starts giving them the weapons when they're going up north. Mm-hmm. So some people have dragon glass, but then Jon has this sword.
And at this point, he doesn't know that the Valyrian steel does anything against the White Walkers, because you see. You figure that, you might be able to like go toe to toe with one for a while, but ultimately they're just maybe the fact that they're already dead, like this makes it hard to kill them. Exactly. But the thing is, when they show up and you actually get to see them fight, in an actual battle, multiple people are going up to them, and their crystal weapons shatter steel. They shatter like all their weapons upon contact. So that's part of the reason why it's so hard to take down a White Walker, is because conventional weapons that they've always trusted don't do shit against the White Walker.
Yeah, exactly.
And then so that was the big reveal, was a White Walker hops down. You know, the Hardhome is getting stormed by a bunch of whites. People are getting slaughtered, whatever. But it seems like a lot of them are actually able to kind of like hold back the whites. So the White Walker hops down and he's just like, all right, it's my turn. He's just like fucking John up the whole time, right? You notice like he's not really trying to stab him with that crystal weapon. He's just like toying with him. He's like throwing him through walls and like punching him or whatever. I think at some point when he gets knocked down, his long claw falls out of his hand and it like slides out the door or something. So he like runs out the door to chase after it. White Walker's like hot on his heels. And so in a desperate attempt, the White Walker like swings at him as he's picking up Longclaw, and he's able to successfully block the strike with the crystal weapon. I think both of them are in shock because John's like, what the fuck? And the White Walker even has like a oh shit look on his face. And then as the White Walker goes for like a second blow, John's able to dodge under it and like cut him in half, shatter him. And I remember seeing that episode and I'm like, man, had I not known this was already about to happen, that would have been such an awesome scene.
It was pretty awesome.
But unfortunately for me, I went in and I was like, oh, this must be the part my dad was talking about.
I don't know. I think mine was worse though, knowing that Joffrey was going to die before he died.
Yeah. That's true. That was a huge event because everyone was talking about that. You know, I could see where like maybe people that aren't into the fighting aspect of the show wouldn't have really cared about that. They're like, whatever. I just get back to the romance, the love. But me, you know, I'm interested in both the relationships and the fighting. Mm-hmm. And so I just felt like that was an awesome scene to watch.
Well, it's definitely important because, you know, the White Walkers seem pretty hard to beat. And we've little by little, we're finding out ways that they can be. But it gets better. You know, John and Tormund and some of the wildlings are able to escape barely.
Mostly like women and children because the guys were left to fight to kind of hold back the undead.
And as they're escaping on their little boats, you see the White Walkers bringing back the dead into whites.
Specifically the Night King, right?
Was it the Night King at that time?
Because the Night King, he walks to the edge of the dock just as John. Oh, so is he
making White Walkers? He's not making whites then, right? Because the White Walkers make the white.
I think he does. Whites? So he's able to do both.
Oh, because no, the White Walkers would be the babies, right?
The White Walkers, you have to use the obsidian, the dragon glass, to be able to change them. But in terms of like reanimating the undead, it's just whites. Yeah. So yeah, the Night King, like he kind of flexes on them at the end of the episode, it was a pretty dope scene, I'm gonna say. So he walks to the end of the dock. I want to say maybe only like 10 feet away from the boat as it's like drifting away. John and Tormund are just terrified, right? As they're just like looking at the Night King, and he just slowly raises his arms. They watch all their friends that just died just stand up and just stare at them. It's just dead quiet. All you hear is just kind of like the little sloshing of the water. It's just like quiet as this army of undead are just watching the boats drift away. And that was the end of the episode.
That's right. It was so creepy.
It's just so ominous, and I loved it.
And then a bunch of stuff happens between 9 and 10.
A ton of stuff. So
I know. I feel like
where do we begin?
Man, the final downfall of Stannis begins.
This is episode 9,
this is episode
the Dance
9.
of Dragons.
Yeah, and so Melisandre manages to finally convince him to sacrifice his own daughter at the stake. And he does. His wife changes her mind, but, you know, it continues on or whatever.
Is this the part where you're saying a lot of moms just kind of checked out?
Actually, well, the moms checked out when at the Red Wedding.
Oh,
but I could see this one being another one. Like, if they weren't checked out before, like, yeah, I could. First of all, I could never do that to my kid, obviously. And
and the thing is, so this was voluntary, whereas the Red Wedding was done by an enemy. This was done by Stannis and his wife, like at the, you know, instructed by Melisandre, because Melisandre tells them if they sacrifice Shireen, you know, I think they needed someone with king's blood in them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So if they sacrifice a child with king's blood in them, like an innocent child, at the stake, then that's going to seal the deal for Stannis' victory as he's marching towards Winterfell to take on Ramsay.
So he does that. His wife changes her mind. As a result, ends up...
As it's happening.
Yeah, as it's happening. As, you know, their daughter is screaming out to her parents to save her.
Man, that was such a terrible scene to watch.
It was so
That
hard.
was crazy.
And again, I was not yet a parent, but yeah, as a parent rereading it and not even seeing it, it's still hard to.
It's super emotional because Shireen is such a sweet girl, and you mostly see her interact with Davos because
when
Stannis,
she's teaching him to read and stuff.
Both of her parents basically have no time for her, but
know.
Davos, he treats her almost like his own daughter, and he's really kind to her, and he's really the one that visits her because she's always just stuck in the room because I don't know, I don't know if they're trying to protect her or if they're just kind of embarrassed by her because she has this mark on her face. They were able to freeze the spread of grayscale, but it's still pretty prominent on her face.
Yeah. So she, I don't know, has to keep a low profile a little bit.
Yeah.
So anyway, the mom hangs herself, and then Stannis kind of, I don't know if he's just like giving up or what, but he decides to storm.
He's desperate.
Yeah, he decides to storm Winterfell anyway. And
no plan. He knows that because he sacrificed Shireen, like everything's gonna be fine. He's like, everything's probably gonna be okay.
Or so he thinks. Either that or he's just kind of lost all hope.
He has nothing else.
He has nothing left to lose. And so he goes in and attacks, brutally defeated.
It's like embarrassing. They didn't put up like hardly any fight at all from what they show on the show.
Everybody and pretty much Stannis and everybody just all die. And at the end, he's still alive. And was it Arya that comes and somebody comes and kills him pretty?
It was Bran.
Was it?
So does that happen in this one? I think that's episode 10, right? That
it might be, but I'm just kind of,
the fight actually happens.
Yeah, it is episode 10, but I'm just kind of going through all of the all of the end of Stannis.
Yeah. I believe it was Bran, yeah.
Yeah, his whole family's gone, his army's gone, he's defeated, he's shamed, he has nobody and nothing left. And
what a way to go out.
And he's out, yeah, he's done.
He's always been in the shadow of Robert Baratheon, and I feel like in a lot of ways he was a good commander and he was a good fighter, but the thing is, like, I feel like he bites off a little bit more than he can chew.
Yeah, and it's interesting because at this point I remember thinking, like, man, he put too much faith in Melisandre and her, weird.
Oh, definitely.
Her weird magic.
Everyone always had. I mean, everyone had a red flag about Melisandre, but he was just like, nah, I trust her.
Exactly. So the next thing that kind of happens throughout the last two episodes, 9 and 10, is. I suppose I think this is just 9, but Daenerys, they finally were convinced to reopen the fighting pits in Meereen. She's witnessing a fight there. Jorah shows up that was pretty much the only way that he can get an audience with Daenerys. And so he shows up to fight, and he saves her as they're getting attacked by the Sons of the Harpy, which are I guess a terrorist group or an assassin group or something that's being funded by
the slavers.
Yeah, the slavers or the masters or whoever. Mm-hmm. In retaliation to everything that she's doing to them.
This was pretty cool too because they were kind of popping up here and there, like taking out a couple Unsullied throughout the city. But this is their first like organized attack,
and I think major it's their only one too.
And they come fucking close. Like there's a moment where you're like, oh shit, Daenerys ain't getting out of this. Like they're surrounded in the pit, and it's only like her, couple of her Unsullied guards. Jorah and isn't Dario there around this time?
I don't know. I don't remember. But yeah, they've locked all the doors.
Mm-hmm. And they're fucked.
Yeah. And if Drogon shows up and whisks her away, and, they're shooting, crap at Drogon too, and he's getting all injured up and whatnot. And so she jumps on his back. And yeah, definitely if he did not show up right there, they would have been screwed. Yeah, and so she jumps on his back and they escape.
This is a cool scene because this is the first time they even tell you that, oh shit, like she can ride a dragon? I didn't even think about that.
That's the first time she rides any of the dragons, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I'm not even sure she realized that she could ride her own dragons.
I think she just in like a desperate attempt to like get away, she like climbs on Drogon, and Drogon's, he's there taking the shots, but he's starting to get fucked up. So then as soon as she climbs on, he's like, all right, let's get out of here. And so they fly away. And, they do take out quite a few of the Sons of the Harpy, but what was interesting here was that they could have wiped out the rest of the guards and like Jorah and Dario, but they stopped their attack because they were only focused on Daenerys. So they're like, well, if she's not here, then we might as well just save our troops the trouble and let's retreat for now. And so I thought that was pretty interesting that they didn't continue fighting. They didn't continue attacking her guards or anything. It was pretty epic that she's like flying a dragon now. Yeah. That's awesome.
That is pretty awesome.
And, this also introduces the possibility, I felt like, that Daenerys may have like a deeper connection with her dragons. Like she's almost able to summon them at will, like in distress. They can sense it and they come to her aid.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I don't think that Drogon just popped up magically, at the right time. Like I think she was scared. She's like, oh shit, I'm about to die right now. Drogon, no matter how far away he was, he sensed it. Like they have some sort of like mental connection, I feel like. And so he was able to like ping her, like find her location based off of their connection and like pick her up and then bounce.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think is that the end of her for the season?
I don't think so. I think there might have been something else.
Well, I mean, she eventually gets they eventually stop somewhere and she
that's episode 10, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Mother's Mercy.
She ends up being basically captured by a horde of Dothraki.
And since they're in the middle of nowhere, she starts just trekking in the direction that she thinks Marine's in, I guess, and a bunch of just random foreign Dothraki show up and capture her.
Yep.
But yeah, episode 10, there's a ton of shit that happens in this episode too. So Sam and Gilly, they travel to Old Town so Sam can train to become a maester. And that was pretty cool because, I don't know, Old Town is just like an interesting city for me. This is like a central hub for messages. And then, they have like that cool tower that's always lit. Isn't it like almost like a torch at the top of the tower?
Well, it's like an academic town, I guess. Like all the writing, the
intellectuals.
History, yeah, like all the intellectual stuff happens there.
They have the biggest library.
And the library and all the knowledge is there and correspondence comes out of there. Mm-hmm. It's a lot.
And then as you were saying before, this is where Stannis, his forces are easily defeated at Winterfell by Ramsay's army. Mm-hmm. Brienne shows up and she keeps her oath to Renly Baratheon. Brienne was part of the Knight's Guard, or the King's Guard, I should say, for Renly Baratheon when he was executed by that shadow baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she keeps her oath to Renly Baratheon by executing an already injured and defeated Stannis.
Ah, that's who does it.
Yes. And that's the thing about her is like when she keeps a promise, she doesn't forget it.
She does not.
She pursues it until her very last breath.
Yeah, she's super honorable, that one.
Very honorable. And in this episode, Sansa and Theon, no longer Reek, narrowly escape Winterfell.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, it was interesting too because Ramsay's little side piece almost stopped him, but they shove her over the bridge and she falls to her death.
Thank goodness for that too.
Thank goodness for the snow because otherwise they wouldn't have been able to successfully.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason they were desperate. They might have jumped anyway, but they were aware that there was deep snow there that would hopefully cushion the brunt of their fall.
Mm-hmm. And it seemed like it worked.
Yeah, and it worked. And then we see Cersei's Walk of Atonement, which I feel like is like the first time that she gets a good humbling.
I think, basically the first time because, this whole storyline with the High Sparrow, it's funny because she's the one that allows it to happen. Like it wouldn't have happened without her. Exactly, and then it totally backfires, and then it backfires. So she's definitely a lot more guarded after these events. And this is also cool, too, because we're introduced to the Mountain 2.0.
Yeah, reanimated mountain.
Which was like a weird like Frankenstein project by Qyburn.
So weird.
And so Qyburn's not a maester, right? From my understanding?
I don't think so.
I think he's a former maester, but I think he was stripped of his title because of his like strange and unethical experiments that he's always doing. Because he's always doing some weird Frankenstein shit, isn't he?
Yeah. So obviously he succeeds in this case.
Mm-hmm.
The mountain is reanimated.
After he was unfortunately killed off by Oberyn.
Yes, and unfortunately, Cersei and Jaime's daughter, Myrcella, is unanimated.
Oh, in this episode? Is that when it
Yep.
happens?
Yep.
Oh,
So
shit.
they're sailing back, and she gets the kiss of death and tells Jamie that she knows he's her dad and he's glad he's her dad, and then dies in her
That was
arms.
such a touching and sad scene for
Yeah.
Jamie.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a little bit weird because she's like, I know I'm the product of incest, but I'm okay with
Yeah.
it.
But the thing is, like, Jamie's never been able to actually experience what it's like to be a dad because he's always had to pretend like he wasn't the dad.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's able to have that one-on-one with Marcella, because Marcella is just sweet to begin with as is, but like he's there and he felt like just as they're heading back to King's Landing from Dorne, he's like, I just feel like I need to get this off my chest. And so he's like struggling to find the words to tell her that he's actually her dad. And she's able to just tell him, like interrupt him and tell him like, I know, it's fine. She's always loved him,
Yeah. It was very sweet and sad.
It breaks his heart because of that kiss of death. Like right after saying that, her nose starts bleeding and she's like, Dad, what's going on? Man, that was very crushing.
It was heartbreaking for sure.
Yeah. And then later on this episode, Arya loses her sight as punishment for not following through with the training.
Yep. And that's
kind of a big deal.
I feel like that is the second to last step in her final, come up basically.
If that wasn't enough for this episode, there is one more big thing that happens in this episode.
Yes.
And that is the mutiny in the Night's Watch.
Man.
So Lord Commander Jon Snow is betrayed and stabbed to death, with Ollie, of all people, getting the final blow on him. And that was what the Night's Watch decided because Jon brought back all those wildlings and just let them pass through the wall.
Yeah.
Which goes against like their whole purpose,
Yeah.
And so since they feel like Jon Snow is basically a wildling now, they decided to take it upon themselves to mutiny and betray him. So Jon is stabbed to death at the end of this episode.
Yep. And the funny thing is that it probably should have been, it was dramatic, obviously. It was dramatic and it was crazy. And it was sad and it sucked. But nobody believed he was dead. Not a single person who watched the show was like,
I did, actually. So I thought Jon was that was like him being written off the show. I thought he was gone for good.
No, man. No.
I mean, I thought this because I didn't know that he was like recast for the following season. But
not just that, but I feel like a lot of people were guessing his lineage at that point. Like there were a lot of theories about him being the son of Lyanna Stark and.
You thought so?
Oh yeah, it was all over the place. It was all over the place. So yeah, nobody was. I mean, everyone was like, no, he has a bigger role. He's not gone.
He was definitely one of the main characters, but I wouldn't say he was the most important character. I felt like they were still playing Daenerys up as like the main character around this time. So I would say that I felt that Daenerys was protected from being killed off, but Jon was just like another big event that's like, oh shit, it's just casualties of the show.
Man, you were blind to the speculation then.
Yeah. And, a lot of people can say after the fact, like, yeah, I knew he was going to be the son this whole time. I didn't have any clue that he was going to be, anything like that important to the storyline. I felt like, he's almost the surrogate for the audience. Like, he's just like this, like, kind person that you follow along the show and he struggles with all these events or whatever, but somehow he always manages to make it through. And this was just, his luck ran out, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely, I'm not going to be the one to say I knew this whole time that he was going to be a Targaryen, this and that, or I knew he was going to be resurrected. I didn't know any of that. I thought he was done.
Obviously I didn't know either. Nobody knew really, but everyone was speculating at that time. And, all that speculation was, I feel like, yeah, everybody kind of, the audience who read up on that stuff and were doing the speculating,
mm-hmm.
It was probably like the most believable, story. And yeah, the North is important. The White Walkers are important. But why the heck was Jon Snow so important?
True, yeah. And, I wasn't the one to, like, in between seasons, go in and, like, try to do as much research to predict what's going to happen. I like to let pleasant surprises happen. Yeah. So I'm not trying to ruin it for myself. I don't like spoilers, you know, and how you were saying like a lot of stuff was spoiled for you as well. So I don't want to do that to myself.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be like trying to dig in and like find out what events haven't happened yet that happened in the books.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, I kind of forgot about this mystery child that Lyanna and Rhaegar had. So because they do a good job of, you know, they only touch upon that every now and then. They're not constantly just shoving that down your throat.
That is true.
So are we in season 6 now?
Pretty much. So at this point, you think Jon Snow is dead, and I'm with everybody else thinking that he's definitely not dead, and that he has a bigger role. So I'm thinking he's going to come back to life somehow, but how?
Okay.
And I don't know. Maybe I could have, if I thought hard enough about it, I would have realized, you know, the whole thing with Melisandre being there and her possibly having the power to bring him back. A lot of people predicted that she would bring him back.
And you know, that's always been a possibility because Thoros of Myr has done that for one of my favorite characters, Beric Dondarrion. So he's able to do that. Yeah, he's able to do that for Beric several times. But the thing is, I didn't realize that Thoros was kind of he follows the same religion that Melisandre does. I didn't put two and two together.
I think I knew that. And so, yeah, I was guessing, you know, along with many other people in the audience, that Melisandre would have something to do with bringing Jon back.
Interesting.
Which
okay.
we were right about.
Do you have anything for episode 1? Because I have episode 2.
Me too. I have episode 2. Well, I just noted basically that the sand snakes or whatever, they just kind of make their move to take over Dorne, and that's pretty much the end of Dorne.
Yeah, they take out the uncle, right?
Yeah,
and Doran, I think is his name.
They're making their moves. They prepare themselves. They put themselves in a position for Dorne to become, you know, a strong woman-led, you know, city.
And this is led by Ilaria Sand.
Is it?
I believe so.
I know
she's
that,
the mom because of the Sand Snakes.
At some point, she Cersei has her imprisoned or whatever, and she has to watch her own daughter die. So
and she was the one that performed the kiss of death on Myrcella. Mm-hmm. That's what I like about them too, is they have that like weird signature when it comes to fighting. Is like it's the poison. It's that slow kill.
Yeah,
that's like always been their thing in Dorne.
Yeah, it's supposed to take a really long time to work.
Because that's what Oberyn used on his spear when he fought the mountain. It was a poison tip.
Yeah, and then Cersei uses the same poison on one of the sand snakes.
Isn't it? Doesn't it have like a cool name, like called like the Long Farewell or something like that?
That does sound cool, but I don't remember. But basically, yeah, it was just like they had their part. You know, the whole Oberyn thing and the killing Myrcella thing and all that. They had their part, and now they have exited the show. They're done. But yeah, episode 2, obviously, I have exactly one thing written down for episode 2.
Oh, damn. Okay, so I actually have quite a few. So episode 2, Home. I wrote down a ton more events happen in this one. So Bran is training to become the Three-Eyed Raven, and it's revealed here that he can actually travel back in time to observe past events, which is pretty badass.
Yes.
So this whole time you're thinking they can travel back in time. Obviously they can't, you know, it's just kind of like you're just viewing it almost like a film, but you can't really interact with anything. The events are already happened and you're like, okay, cool. You know, it's so cool to be able to go back and watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Tyrion frees Viserion and Rhaegal from the cave. Mm-hmm. And he just had like that sweet story. I remember that he was telling the dragons because I think he was trying to talk himself through his fear too, because he felt like he was about to shit himself.
Yeah.
But I think wasn't he telling him about like his life when he was younger, and he felt like he always wanted to see a dragon. That was always like one of his dreams as a child, and it was almost like a dream come true now that he was able to see real life living dragons, you know, and it was pretty touching.
That is.
And then Arya gets her sight back after passing the Faceless Man's test.
Good for her.
So, I mean, and this is around the time too where I think she kind of feels like she's starting to be a little homesick. Like she's like, I'm kind of done with Essos. You know, like I think she's starting to think about getting out of the Faceless Man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So this is where she, but she still has to. She still gets to learn the final
Yeah,
ways of the faceless before she makes her exit.
but I do feel like around this time she's probably like, I think she's starting to think like, all right, so how can I get out of this now?
And I think she's starting to think about, because the whole thing is she, well, at some point she meets up with that actress that she was supposed to kill but doesn't.
Hmm. And then
I
she's
think that was
starting
when
to
that was
become
when the
Arya
other
again.
one, yeah, and that was when the other one comes and kills the actress because she never did.
I forgot what was that girl's name. She was like the
The
waif or
waif,
something like that.
yeah. So she comes. That was when Arya got in trouble and lost her sight as punishment because she was supposed to
Hmm.
kill the actress. She didn't. She hesitated. The waif comes and does it for her, and then tattles on her, and she
And you get a sense that like the waif just never trusted her, never liked her, and didn't ever
no,
want her to join them.
yeah, definitely did not.
And then later in this episode, Ramsay murders his father, his stepmother, and infant stepbrother to take over House Bolton.
He sure does.
His savagery has no limit. He will do whatever the fuck he wants, and he won't even hesitate.
Nope,
Like this guy is a complete psychopath.
he sure is. Yeah, and that's what makes him so bad.
In this episode, also one of my favorite characters is introduced, Euron Greyjoy.
Yeah.
He's the uncle of Theon and Yara, and he shows up by killing his own brother, King Baelon
Yes.
Greyjoy. And now we get to the big event. Melisandre fails to resurrect Jon.
Or does she? Yeah. So she tries. She thinks she fails. They all just kind of leave defeated. And John opens his eyes. Gasp. Everybody saw it coming except Eric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was at this point. You know, there has to be a reason why they keep bringing him on, because this is already 2 episodes in, and we're seeing a dead Jon. So you're like, okay, they must be doing something with this. And so
Yeah, why would they keep his body around?
that's when Melisandre attempts to do the resurrection ritual, which Thoros has been able to do successful in the past, but she's never done it before. So, and I think around this time too, her Stannis's defeat shakes her faith a bit. Like she's starting to doubt herself, because she's like, damn, like I actually don't know if any of this is true. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do this. So she's a little doubtful in her abilities.
Yeah, it's interesting.
You know, they've been shaken. And yeah, I think around this time, I'm like, okay, they have to be doing something with Jon.
She
now.
does so much based on her faith, based on her faith, based on her faith. But for this, she's like, even though I've heard of Barrett coming back 6 times.
Yep. And it was cool. Yeah, like I like that delay. It wasn't like he immediately is resurrected. It's like, fuck, well, we tried. And then everyone leaves. And then Jon his eyes just snap open.
Yeah.
And that was the end of the episode.
Something to note that you find out in the next episode is that it turns out when Jon died, he fulfilled his oath to the Night's Watch. So he's released.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because I always felt like he just broke it. But I guess after he dies,
he's released. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the oath
you
is
find that out.
You serve until you die,
Yeah.
right? And so he did die, but then he came back. So that kind of nullifies the oath.
Exactly.
Okay.
He fulfilled his contract.
Nice.
He understood the assignment. Anyway, so the next episode is number 3. I want to point out here that Bran is going into the past and learning his dad's story. And at some point, he calls out to his dad, and his dad turns.
That was really awesome, because as I was stating before, you knew that they could like go back in time and view the events, but you didn't think that they could actually alter or interact with anything while they're in these visions.
And so this, I mean, you start getting into some crazy time travel stuff here if he does too much. Mm-hmm. Which we won't get into, because there's always a lot when it comes to time travel-y things. But the fact that you find out that he can actually affect the past.
That was so fucking cool. Yeah, like when he calls out to his dad, like young Ned, and Ned's like walking up the stairs, and he pauses, and he actually heard that.
Yes.
I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, what?
Agreed. That was great.
Pretty cool. I have episode 4. Do you
also I have episode 4. I do have some stuff. I want to talk about
Okay.
in episode 4. I think
All
it
right.
was important to note.
The Book of the Stranger.
Not necessarily a big part of the overarching story, but I wanted to note that Tyrion is kind of leading in Daenerys' stead while she's disappeared.
While she's with the
And
Dothraki as a prisoner.
yes. And not for long though. I'll get to that too.
Later in episode 4, Dario Naharis and Jorah Mormont find Daenerys in Vaes Dothrak, which is like the Dothraki capital city.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wanted to get your feelings about Dario because it seemed like you don't really remember him a whole lot.
I remember, well, I do. One thing I definitely remember about him is that he was recast.
Exactly.
That was like
and
a big deal.
I wanted to see what you thought about his recast as well, because I actually feel like they did a great job recasting, because I was like,
yeah, I was fine with it.
I did not like the previous actor, which was the guy in the Transporter reboot.
Right. Yeah, I feel like so many people made such a big deal about it, and I was like, whatever. It's not like he's that big of a, important character or anything like that, so I didn't really care. But yeah, I do remember that being a huge thing. But
the thing is, it was a pretty drastic recasting because they look nothing alike.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, if I didn't hear about the recasting, I would have probably just assumed it was some other character. Or I probably wouldn't, like, I would have remembered the name, but I wouldn't have remembered the face. And so I would have just moved on with my life. Yeah.
I actually kind of liked the Dario character. I felt like he was, even though like maybe he had like a shady upbringing or whatever, and he had to do some questionable things in the past, he was a pretty badass fighter, and he was pretty witty and kind of cocky as well, but like not in an annoying way.
Yeah.
And he just had like that charm, which I think worked on Daenerys because they were lovers for a while.
Yeah,
and
clearly.
that I liked the dynamic between Dario and Jorah, because they don't like each other because they both love Daenerys in the same way.
Yeah.
But Dario's the one that's actually getting some, and Jorah is never going to get any. So
yeah.
And obviously it's like one's younger, one's older, and there's just like this personal rivalry between them. But during this journey to find Daenerys, I felt like they kind of learned to respect each other. Dario finds out that, I think he's the first person to find out that Jorah has grayscale.
Yeah, he is.
And so I think he kind of feels sorry for him, like, and because after he finds that out, he tones down a lot of his like poking and prodding, like he's constantly just like giving him shit.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, he's just like, oh fuck, like this is we don't really hear a lot of people getting out of grayscale once they get it, like surviving it.
Yeah.
So
like
I think it's almost like a death sentence.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to bring up the fact that this is also Brenda's second. Actually, I don't know. I think maybe while Baelish is away, because he's not in every episode, I think this is actually Brenda's favorite character, maybe a little bit above Baelish. So she actually really liked Dario.
Baelish love, but I do know a lot of people were into Dario.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't in on
it. Not really feeling it.
Yeah, he was pretty forgettable to me.
I almost felt like he was kind of like a more manly Jon in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Like he was like an actual like man, and he was like confident in his abilities, and he was also a capable fighter. And I would have actually loved to see the dynamic between Dario and Jon had they ever met.
Yeah. Jon could be like, but I'm her nephew. But anyway.
Top that.
Daenerys, she comes up with a plan and ends up pulling another burn everything but me down.
So this is also going along with your she's always been crazy theory.
It does. Yeah, she I think she's trying to like come to an agreement with all the calls or whatever.
Okay.
And they're not in on it, and they all just decide that they're just gonna gang rape her or whatever. And so she knocks down a couple of little like fire torch things and burns the whole place down except for herself, and takes over the Dothraki in general.
Like all of the Dothraki, because she single-handedly kills all
their kings. Yeah. So.
And then on top of that, she emerges like some sort of goddess, because she burns down their sacred temple, and she just walks out of it unharmed. And so
out of a fire.
Everyone's like, what the? And so also this is around the time when Jorah and Daario are like within the city, right, to go come to her rescue. And this is the first time Daario ever sees this ability. Jorah already knows about it, but Dario's like, what the fuck? And so, he's like awestruck as well.
Yeah, and he's like, if I didn't believe in her naked body before, I believe in it now.
Mm-hmm. And that's it.
Yeah.
So that was episode 4. Now we get to episode 5, The Door.
The Door.
The Door. So this also has quite a few that happens, but it's mostly around the Three-Eyed Raven, right? This whole episode.
So Bran, you find out previously that Bran can actually affect the past, and he sees. Is he seeing the making of the Night King in his vision?
Yeah, so this is where the audience learns that the Children of the Forest created the White Walkers. They were the ones that created the very first one, the
defend
Night
themselves
King.
Against man.
Yeah, the first man.
So he attracts the Night King's attention in his vision, and the Night King touches him, marking him in real life. And then the White Walkers immediately come for him.
So how crazy is... I want to touch on this a little bit. So how crazy was that scene? Because not only can Bran like go back in time and kind of affect it in little ways, like interact with the past, but now in a vision, the Night King can touch him. Like I was like,
and I wonder if he remembers that. Like I wonder if the Night King remembers, like, oh yeah, a long, long time ago when I was first made, I see a boy and I touch him, and eventually I'm gonna know where to go.
That's so crazy. Yeah, because this whole time, there's like some sort of like force field or like invisible magical barrier thing around this giant weirwood tree that the Three-Eyed Raven like hides out in. It like essentially cloaks them be under his nose, but like he never knows where they are.
Until now.
It shatters the barrier essentially. And now they know they not only can they see him, but they can like pass through the barrier into the hideout and kill everyone.
So they come immediately. Bran is basically trying to just quickly get all the information he can get from the Three-Eyed Raven, because the Three-Eyed Raven isn't coming with him. He's becoming him right now.
I almost feel like at this point he's like one with the tree. Like he can't really move.
He can't. Yeah. So yeah, the Three-Eyed Raven's like, take all this information because I'm not coming with you, obviously.
Yeah.
And so he's, like in his trance, doing the information transfer.
This is the part where I don't know if I quite understood what was happening.
Okay, so what happens? Okay, this is the way I understood it. He is able to kind of split himself. So he's like warging Hodor at the same time as he's in the past, and he happens to be in the past.
Fuck?
Yes, so he happens to be in the past.
How is he doing all this?
Seeing Hodor's childhood, and his name was Willis.
Willis, okay.
And
so that's his real name.
So while he's seeing his past, he's also possessing him in the present, and they're escaping. And so they're
the last remaining children of the Force are like sacrificing themselves. Summer also dies. Bran's direwolf.
Yeah, they die to protect him. And what's her name? Mira.
Mira, yeah. Is she dragging Bran out the door, or is
she's
Hodor...
trying to? No, I think she's trying to, because that's why Bran takes control of Hodor, so that he can actually do something and help get him out of there. Yeah. And so they get to this exit. She's basically sacrificing Hodor, and she's dragging Bran along, and Hodor is...
Which is kind of fucked up. She takes it upon herself to just say, you're gonna die while we get away. Peace.
Well, yeah, it was either her and Bran or nobody, basically. So she's yelling at him to hold the door, while Bran's in his past. Willis, in the past, hears her yelling, hold the door, through Bran's connection.
He's warging into present-day Hodor and also being in a past vision, looking at young Hodor, it like creates some sort of like mental link or something.
Yes. And then young Willis hears the hold the door
from the future,
and has like a seizure. Yeah, and has like a seizure thing.
What the fuck?
And then becomes, loses his mental capacity in this medical event, becomes Hodor.
And he just keeps repeating Mira's words. So he's like, hold the door, hold the door, hold the door. And then eventually it like slurs into what just sounds like Hodor. Yeah. And which becomes the only thing he's able to say after that event.
Yes.
That's fucking crazy.
Isn't
Wow.
that messed up? So that was the big reveal in
That
that
was so
episode.
much to take in. When I saw that episode,
It was so emotional. Like, it was very dramatic and emotional, and just,
because I'm trying to process everything as it's happening, so
yeah.
I'm like, what?
I
That
remember
is
leaving that
crazy.
episode. I remember leaving that episode with so many emotions.
It was, I mean, it's definitely an interesting concept for sure, because what affected him hadn't even happened yet. Like, that was like years later, but yet
Yeah.
somehow that affected him as a young boy, and then he just became Hodor.
Yeah, and so I feel like that was probably the biggest, brand affects the past moment.
Yeah, that was fucking cool though, I must say. All right, episode 9.
Yeah, mine is my next one is episode 9, but I just want to point out that to move the story along in episode 6, Daenerys decides to continue her quest to travel back to the Seven Kingdoms, and at the same time, Arya finishes her final training, ditches the faceless people.
She bones out.
Yep, and she goes back to her original. So Daenerys and
Well, she
Arya
grabs
both go
Needle
back to
though.
their. She does grab, of course, yeah, and so both of them go back to their original plans.
Nice. But now Arya's this like badass trained assassin.
Yes, so she's gone through her final training,
Mm-hmm.
not her final growth, but her final training, pretty much, and they both get back to it, and so then we get to episode 9.
She's always wanted to learn how to fight. Like, even in the early
Yeah,
episodes,
yeah,
she's being taught like the water dancing and all that stuff. So she's always wanted to learn how to fight, and now she knows how to actually like effectively
yeah.
kill
She's
people.
an effective assassin. So yeah, episode 9, Battle of Bastards,
Battle of the Bastards. I think
aka
everyone pretty much knows this episode.
aka the episode where Sansa saves the day twice.
Twice. Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Twice.
before we get into that, Daenerys with her 3 full-grown dragons now. This is what I was talking about earlier with the slavers. So you think that Tyrion strikes that deal and like everything is fine, while Tyrion is still running Meereen. The slavers show up and they just start bombarding and they're attacking Meereen. They're like going to take it by force, and if they can't take it, then they're just going to crumble it to the ground. So Daenerys shows up with her 3 full-grown dragons, and she's like, Tyrion, what the hell did you do to my town? So they fight off the slavers' attack on Meereen. They take out a bunch of the ships, and they actually meet with like the masters again. And that's when they tell them, like, listen, we're not going to tell you again. You can continue running your town, but if we have to go through this shit one more time, that's the end of it. Here's the thing is that only one of you 3 can go back. And so they all vote like the center guy. And so he's
Right.
just like, oh shit, I guess I'm the one that is going to be like sacrificed or whatever. Oh no, I think they said one of you has to die. So they vote the middle guy. And so he's like, fuck, like, I guess I'm the sacrifice.
No,
And
he's the one who
so
survives.
so here's the thing: is that Tyrion he orders Grey Worm to kill the other 2 that volunteered the center guy,
Yeah.
and then Tyrion tells him, because he's like fucking pissing his pants, and he like drops down to his knees, and Tyrion just walks up, all G like, puts his hand on his shoulder and just says like, "Remember what happened here," and then like lets him leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, they successfully fend off the attack on Meereen, and they leave that one master alive.
Yeah.
So that was a cool little like swerve. And he does a slick too, because the guy that gets voluntold, essentially, he collapses to his knees and he is like, fuck, I'm about to die right now. And that allows Grey Worm to just like slit the other 2 guys' throats in one swing. So yeah, it was pretty slick. I like how they did that. And then Jon's forces prepare to retake Winterfell, but before that, Ramsay plays a little mind game with him at the cost of Rickon Stark's life.
Man. Zigzag.
How sad was that? That was again, this is Ramsay just being his piece of shit self, like he always is.
He's like, go back to your brother, and
He lets Rickon go. Yeah, he's just like, here's the game. Just run to your brother. That's it. And Rickon doesn't trust him either. He's like, what do you mean? He's just like, just go. Your brother's over there. Just go run to him. But, it's never that easy. Jon is still kind of far away. And so just before he's able to reach Rickon, that last arrow gets Rickon right in the throat.
Poor kid.
That was so sad. Jon just goes into like a rage here. Like, he's like looking down at his younger brother, and he's just like, I'm just going to charge in recklessly and just do this by myself. And he just decides to like charge in on his own. And then Ramsay's forces are charging at him. And I think at this point you're like, well, John's about to die again.
Right? Yeah, I did think that. I totally did think that. John was like, man, he
I'm
just
like,
got
they
brought back
brought
to
him
life
back just to die.
just to kill him off right here.
Yeah.
And at this point, I did think, oh, this is the end for John.
This was pretty dope how they planned out the scene, because John's forces were like trying to catch up this whole time. So they reach him just as Ramsay's forces reach him. And so this giant battle ensues. And this is the Battle of the Bastards. This is where it begins.
Yes. And you'd like to think that John's going to win, but it seems like Ramsay's getting the upper hand.
They seem to be getting cornered in the middle of the battlefield, which is kind of interesting because they're being cornered up against this like giant wall of bodies.
Yeah, he's basically getting crushed.
Ramsay is, he doesn't fuck around when it comes to actual warfare. Like, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's scary because he's so sick in the head.
So just when it seems like all hope is lost, what happens?
Sansa shows up with the Army of the Vale.
The Knights of the Vale to save the day.
Thank goodness. And this is where the reason that she basically let Baelish creep on her all this time and continues to let Baelish creep on her because they need the Knights of the Vale.
Yeah.
John wins.
I definitely didn't see that coming. I was like, I don't know how they're going to get out of this.
Yeah, I agree.
The way that they portrayed it, it was well done. And I want to say it might have been the best battle scene in the entire show.
Yeah, so they managed to win and they capture Ramsay. And it's revealed earlier that Ramsay has been starving his hounds for a week.
So Ramsay flees into Winterfell, and they have to actually break into Winterfell. They're only able to do that with the Wildling Giant.
Right.
So the giant is like busting through the door, and he's getting arrows in him this whole time. In his last burst of energy, he busts through, and then Ramsay kind of finishes him off.
Yeah.
And how satisfying was it when John gets to whoop that ass?
Oh yeah. But the most satisfying part is
who gets the last laugh?
Sansa knows that he was starving his dogs for this, and Ramsay's in a cell, and Sansa comes to talk to him. And she, threatens him with his own dogs. And Ramsay's like, they're not going to eat me. They're loyal to me.
They love me.
Yeah. And she's like, but you've been starving them for a whole week. They're not going to care. So she sicks his own dogs on him. And that is the satisfying end of Ramsay.
Savage yet satisfying, for sure.
For sure.
I guess we'll just start from the top. And then I'll work my way down. So episode 10, The Winds of Winter. Arya is now back in Westeros, we find out, as she viciously takes out Walder Frey.
That was great.
He's like, where the hell are my sons? And she's like, this is Arya dressed up as like some rando girl. She's like, they're here. They're here, my lord. And so she keeps pointing down the little like meat pie on the plate. And then so that's when Arya finally reveals herself. She takes off the mask. So she slits his throat. And that's the end for Walder Frey.
Yeah, and that sets up the rest of her revenge for her to take Frey's face. That's great.
And then Cersei escapes her trial. I forgot about that.
Well, she escapes her trial by blowing up the
Sept of Baelor.
Yeah, killing Marjorie, which prompts her son Tommen, her final kid,
to commit suicide.
To jump out of a window and end it all. Pretty brutal.
Yeah. I always felt like he did actually really love Marjorie, even though they didn't really know each other for very long. But yeah,
I think that the wildfire was actually there for the last time the Sept had any sort of power, as a just in case.
Well, I think this was done by, from my understanding, Aerys Targaryen. So the Mad King was the one that was planting wildfire around the city because he felt that if he ever lost King's Landing, he was just going to blow it all up and take everyone with him.
Yeah. So
and man, that wildfire doesn't fuck around.
No, it does not. And that sets up Cersei to become queen again.
They took out the High Sparrow, the Faith Militant, the Tyrells, and Marjorie all at the same time. And then, Cersei crowns herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms.
Dang.
So then, now we get to Bran's vision of his father again, Ned Stark.
Where you finally get to see what the heck Ned was climbing that tower for.
Finally, the big reveal. Yeah, he finally gets to find his sister, who is also, not only is he looking for her because that's a sister, but he's also ordered by Robert Baratheon, who Lyanna Stark is supposed to be set to marry, right?
Yeah.
Ned finally finds Lyanna Stark, And I think this is where that cool spot actually happens, where he calls out to his dad, right?
Yeah, but then he's continuing on that. He's continuing on that vision. So Ned finally gets up there and finds that his sister has just had a baby and is dying.
They still reveal who that baby's identity is, because it like fades into John's face right after she like whispers something into his ear.
And you're like, well, there's that.
So now it reveals that Jon is the son of Lyanna Stark and Rhaegar Targaryen.
And that is season 6. And I feel like season 7, like, you know, revisiting this, they do a whole lot of closing things up.
Tying up loose ends, or try to.
Tying up loose ends.
I feel like they didn't really do like the best job.
It was a little rushed.
It was very rushed, in my opinion.
It was rushed, but you know, they did what they could, I suppose.
This was cool too, because they updated the intro. That's another shout out I want to give to the show, is that they had a functional intro.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Actually, if you notice, it always shows you the places that will appear in the episode.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why it's functional, is because it shows you the map and it shows you the places, like you said, that are going to be in this episode. And I feel like a lot of people may not have known that, because they just probably figured it was going to be the same thing each time. So they probably just skipped it.
Yeah.
But I always watched it. I thought it was interesting to see it kind of evolve. And the towns would also look a little bit different too. Like if there was a war that happened, then it would be smoking.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's cool. They updated the intro starting from season 7, I guess for 7 and 8, because around this time they're starting to consolidate the areas that they're going to be visiting. So they don't need to show as much. Like now that Daenerys is in Westeros, they don't need to show Essos at all.
Yes.
You know, little by little, everyone's going to be congregating in the same areas. So I think they decided to just show only a couple places, but they're showing more of them. Like they're staying on those shots a little bit longer. So, you know, of course they still show the wall, and then they show Winterfell, but as Winterfell's like building up, they're like going through the halls and everything of Winterfell, and they do the same for King's Landing. So I just thought it was pretty cool that they changed it up. It was a little bit more HD.
Yeah.
But yeah, episode 1, Dragonstone. Did you also have this one?
I just had a small note about episode 1.
Okay.
That Sam is at the Citadel, and he starts gaining information in the library and passing it on to Jon. And one of those things is that there is a huge deposit, I guess, of dragon glass under Dragonstone.
I guess it kind of makes sense, because that island, if you look at it, it's like this black island, and the whole thing looks like it's made out of dragon glass.
Yeah, pretty much.
I feel like this season really comes out swinging, because Arya Stark is back. She's still at the Twins, and she single-handedly wipes out House Frey as she impersonates Walder Frey.
Yep.
A recently deceased Walder Frey. So she stayed there so she could take his face.
Yeah, takes his
pretend
face.
to be him. And man, she like ends up poisoning the entire house.
Family. Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. So she like wipes out House Frey by herself.
So that closes that. She gets her revenge for the Red Wedding and the death of her family.
Winter came for House Frey.
Yeah, for sure.
It's pretty badass. So I don't have anything until episode 4.
Yeah, just little things like Jon finally meets Daenerys.
Yeah, she finally touches down in Westeros. She's in Dragonstone, and then
Jon comes because of the dragon glass.
The dragon glass, yeah.
And he asks her to mine it, and he talks about the White Walkers too, and she doesn't believe him. But in a gesture of goodwill, basically, she decides to let him mine the dragon glass anyway.
I have episode 4. Do you have this one as well?
I don't have anything in particular.
So this was significant for me, episode 4, The Spoils of War, because I really felt like this was the last episode that really felt like the rest of the previous seasons. Because after this, it started feeling different for me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I started noticing like, man, these episodes aren't as fleshed out as they normally are, or it's like really rushed. So I felt like this was really the episode that started feeling like a different show to me. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to note that Arya reunites with Sansa and Bran in Winterfell. So she finally made it back home. Jon, having now met Daenerys in Dragonstone, was given the okay to mine the dragon glass. And this is where he shows Daenerys the hokey wall paintings, which I was like, I think it could have been done better.
Yeah.
It looked like, and someone was saying this too in like forums. They were like, he could just drawn that up like really quick and just say like, "Hey Daenerys, come check this out. These are like ancient drawings I just found."
I suppose that's true.
In Daenerys' first kind of strategic battle acts, she ordered the Unsullied to take Casterly Rock, and this was actually the strategy that Tyrion came up with. But there's no one there. It's kind of like all the forces are gone. And then Euron comes in from behind and takes all their ships. So now the Unsullied are stranded on the other side of the continent. The Lannisters are actually in Highgarden, emptying out that town for all its gold, so that way they can repay all the Lannister debt. Around this time, Daenerys finds out about what happened at Casterly Rock, and she's like, you know what? I've had enough of this. This is where we actually get to see the Dothraki fight in Westeros for the very first time, and it was pretty badass.
Yeah, so yeah, they attack the Lannister caravan. And in my opinion, this is actually one of the less crazy things that Daenerys does.
Well, you know, since they hit a swerve on us, we're gonna hit one on them.
Pretty much.
And so she joins the battle too. So she takes Drogon and she's flying overhead, taking out a lot of the Lannister army while the Dothraki are just like mopping them up. Everyone knows how savage and how fearless and how intimidating the Dothraki are, and they just like mow them down completely. But this is also when it's revealed that Qyburn has been working on a special invention, and he reveals the ballista, which they call the Scorpion.
The Scorpion.
And so they were kind of thinking like, what if the dragon shows up? You know, we need to be able to do something. So Bronn takes hold of the Scorpion, and he actually is able to shoot down Drogon. Like Drogon gets hit with one of the spears.
Yeah.
And so he's forced to land because it's just like kind of like lodged in his wing. Jaime sees this. He's like, okay, so she's vulnerable right now. Now's my chance. And, you know, as he's like approaching her, Bronn actually knocks him into the lake before Drogon can turn him into ash.
Yep. So then...
I don't have anything until episode 7, so...
Wow, okay, yeah, because I actually thought this was pretty important. So Jon and crew head back up to the north, and they decide to capture a white to show Cersei, to convince Cersei and pretty much everybody else that they exist, whoever doesn't believe. But this is where when they go up there, this is where they find out. What do you mean you don't have anything till episode 7? This is where they find out, first of all, that the whites are connected to the White Walkers because they kill a White Walker and all the whites go down except one, which I guess means this white was connected to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is Daenerys loses Viserion in episode 6.
Yeah, it was a big event, but I was trying to like just choose the biggest events I felt like were the most impactful. You don't think
an ice dragon is big?
Well, I was actually expecting you to choose this one, so I was like, at least that way we can cover all bases.
So the Night King reanimates, kills Viserion with one of his spears, reanimates him into an ice dragon. He basically breathes like this blue ice fire. I don't know, it's weird.
I do want to say that this episode is kind of annoying to me, though, for multiple reasons. I think I'm in the same boat with a lot of people when it said, like, how the fuck did Daenerys get up there so fast?
Yeah,
she like learned about it later that afternoon, and then she was there by that evening.
Yeah, because it's like within days, you know, she's down in King's Landing. She's all the way up to the wall. I feel like this continent is not as big as they make it out to be, you know, because I feel like they're getting from place to place within, you know, days, a day to...
I feel like it is as big as we originally thought, but for
they're just kind of skipping
for
over.
The convenience of the plot, they had her teleport up there.
Pretty much, yeah. So it's part of the magic. We just have to accept it.
And also, that plan was super flawed. I'm like, what the fuck were they thinking? They're really going to just go up there, sneak a white back.
Steal a white back.
Like, none of that shit made any sense to me. I was like, okay, whatever. It was like already doomed to fail.
Yeah. So then we get to some important information in episode 7.
Oh yeah, episode 7, The Dragon and the Wolf. So the heroes successfully capture their white, and they present it to Cersei in King's Landing. She seemingly joins their cause, but then tells Jaime that she lied and he actually ends up leaving so that way he can help them in Winterfell.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it seems like they split from each other for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Jaime ends up with Euron Greyjoy for a little bit, or Cersei does, and then Jaime ends up with Brienne before they eventually, you know, before Jaime pulls Jaime and goes back to Cersei to die.
And I think, so Cersei's made sense because that was like a strategic like power move. Like she's like, I want Euron's fleet. So she was kind of buttering him up. But Jaime, his relationship with Bran was, I think it was a little bit more organic.
Yeah. And I feel like Jaime had slightly more of a heart than Cersei's complete lack of one. Like, I feel like Cersei, she might have loved Jaime the best that she was capable of doing, but I don't think she was really capable of loving.
Interesting. Well,
except maybe
I felt
her
like
children.
she loved her kids.
Yeah. But that was pretty much it. And so I feel like it wasn't so hard for her to let Jaime go.
And I also wrote down that Daenerys and Jon become lovers. And
Man.
I felt that the relationship just felt rushed and underdeveloped, unfortunately. I felt like had this been a full season, they would have had enough time to really build it out and maybe even top Jon and Ygritte. Because I felt like their relationship was much more organic. It took its time. That's why I enjoyed it so much. But Jon and Daenerys, I don't know, just they needed more time and it was rushed.
Yeah, and you find out like the moment before they get it on that Jon is Aegon Targaryen.
Well, we already knew he was a Targaryen, so we're like, that's already incest. But in terms of like the Targaryens,
no, you find out. No, you suspect. You find out. You find out that Jon is, not Ned Stark's son. You find out that he's Lyanna's and stuff. And of course you assume that it's with Rhaegar, but it's not actually like fully cemented, like revealed until the moment before they get it on. Like his name is revealed.
It was, yeah, exactly. So he's a Targaryen and that's still going to be incest regardless, but you knew that he's Lyanna and Rhaegar's son. And then you don't find out what his name is until...
Yeah, you find out his name at that moment.
Yeah, until Bran and Sam kind of get together, so...
And then finally, the White Walkers breach the wall.
Oh, yeah. Also, I didn't want to forget that Peter Baelish, his luck finally runs out.
Finally.
that was pretty cool, too, because he thought he was so slick, and he was playing Arya and
everybody,
Sansa.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because he thought he was playing everybody, and it's all turned back around on him, and the way he ends up going out is by getting played the way he played everybody else.
Damn. I loved how unexpected it was. Like when Sansa finally tells Baelish, like, all right, we had enough of your shit. He was so caught off guard by it. He's like, wait, I'm sorry, what? We're talking about me? And the way that he's begging for the Knights of the Vale to like take him back, and they're just like, nah, we ain't gonna do that. You're on your own. It was so satisfying to see him just like...
Arya makes the final blow.
Oh yeah, his sentence has been cast, and Arya took him out, slit his throat.
Oh, that was great.
And that was it. That's the end for Peter Baelish.
That was great.
And then yes, the Night King with reanimated Viserion and dragon breath is able to bust through the east side of the wall, right?
Yeah,
so he busts through Eastwatch.
Yeah, which sets us up for the continuation of the last season, aka season 8.
Season 8, which is just season 7 part 2.
Yep. And so the first 3 episodes are basically focused on the White Walker fight, the battle against them.
So did you check out a lot for the first 3 episodes because it was mostly fighting?
Maybe. I mean, I wrote down just like a couple things for episode 1 and episode 3, and that was kind of it. And that was the end of the White Walkers anyway. And so, you obviously find out that Cersei lied and she doesn't send anybody to help. Mm-hmm. Jon actually finds out who he is.
And then Bran and Jaime get it on.
And Bran and Jaime. Does that happen later, or does that happen here?
That happens right before the fight.
Oh, okay.
Because they didn't know if they're going to live, if they're going to survive that fight.
Yeah, and they were teasing her about still being a virgin and stuff.
She was recently knighted by Jaime as well, so she's like an actual knight.
Yeah, so that was great for her.
But I had some notes for episode 3. So did you have anything before that?
Just that Jon finds out who he is. So
episode 3, The Long Night. This was kind of interesting because this whole episode is entirely just the fight at Winterfell. Yeah. Melisandre just shows up randomly before the battle in The Long Night, and she provides the flame swords, which are pretty pointless, but they looked cool as hell.
They did, yeah. That was just a looks thing, yeah, because the Dothraki are really quickly overwhelmed.
Yeah, what it really did was it served as an important visual purpose by being able to see them off in the distance in the darkness. And as the fires extinguished, that meant that each one was dying.
Yeah.
So that's all it really served. But it was still pretty cool looking,
and
regardless.
Melisandre continued to be pretty useless, except for her bringing Jon back.
You know, it made sense too to kind of start off with the Dothraki because they were the most skilled fighters and they rarely ever fail in their mission since they have that like track record. You of course they send them out first, and if they
And
wipe
you
out
think
all
they're going to be
the White
badass.
Walkers, then you know that's it. It's easier for everyone. So they send them out first, Jorah included. I don't know why the hell he's out there,
Right.
but they go out there first with their flame swords, and this was probably visually speaking one of the coolest scenes in the whole series. Was they're charging, it's showing like a side shot of like the front row of like the Dothraki. They're
Yeah.
charging with their flame swords, and then the catapults are shooting overhead and they look like meteors. It was just such a fucking awesome looking scene.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just point that out. You know, they quickly, like you said, they get wiped out. There's no fucking way in hell that Jorah would have been able to come back. He would have been dead.
Yeah.
Anyone in the front row outside of Winterfell would have been gone. I don't know
Pretty
how
much.
Jaime survived. I don't know how Bran survived. Grey Worm, they would have all been dead.
And yet they prevailed somehow.
What's another curious thing to note is that so the army of the Dutch show up, the Whites and the White Walkers, but then they just wait. Like they're waiting for the humans, like the living army to
It's
do
an
something
intimidation
first.
tactic.
Which I felt like they don't really care about strategy. It seems like the White Walkers just like go and they just fuck shit up.
It's the night. I feel like it's the night because the Night King's there and he's controlling it all, And
Well, see, here's the thing too: was he wasn't even there. Apparently, he was like off on Viserion doing whatever the fuck. So his commanders were there, but like the Night King wasn't even there yet.
yeah,
So yeah, they then after they kill the Dothraki, they counterattack, and you just see that wall of bodies, or you try to see the wall of bodies
right.
because this episode is so damn dark. I couldn't see shit when I saw it the
Seriously.
first time.
And then you get they set the moat on fire
Desperately.
and they fill it with bodies and start climbing over it. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi, what's up, buddy?
You can't really hear him, but he said hi.
Hi.
All right, continuing on.
So yeah, the Night King and his undead army are routed at Winterfell, and I don't know, how'd you feel about Arya killing the Night King? I still felt indifferent about it. It just didn't seem right to me. Something was off.
I feel like that was like her big moment. Because if she didn't do that, then she kind of had no purpose in the show. That was
You
what
think so?
everything was leading up to. All her traveling, all her learning how to fight, her learning to become a skilled killer. If she hadn't learned all that stuff, I think she would not have been able to have the skill to save everybody like that. And I mean, obviously, she did get her revenge for her family with the phrase.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was her moment. This was her one
Interesting.
moment.
I felt like her training wouldn't necessarily translate to her being able to kill the Night King, because her thing was like she could get close enough to you to be able to kill you, right?
Well, I mean, she did get the fighting skill too, and she wouldn't have been able to do that badass dagger drop into her other hand.
The other hand.
she gained that skill at some point.
And she was able to like run like super fast apparently.
Yeah, so she gained the skill. Obviously, she had no, there was no changing faces or conning people in this particular instance, but
yeah,
she did gain the skill to be able to do what she did there and have her moment.
Well, what's your next episode? What do you have next?
5.
Okay, I also have 5. The Bells.
Mm-hmm. So now we just get to the final, the final game for the final throne.
The final game for the final throne.
Mm-hmm.
And this is against Cersei, so she's the last remaining villain of the show. Yes,
and we have 2 episodes left that we're going to talk about here. I guess since we're leading up to here, we're leading up to her final, Daenerys' final
descent.
Yeah, her final descent, her final downfall. I did want to point out a couple of things before. I think Tyrion mentions that it would be important for her to have a strong Westerosi house to back her. And she claims that she's going to quote unquote break the wheel with a kind of crazy glint in her eye without a house's backing. Like she just wants to basically take over on her own.
Hmm.
She kills every call, Dothraki call, which was in her crazy fashion, which we mentioned, obviously.
Okay.
And at some point, Cersei's trying to turn people against Daenerys and kind of portrays her
Is
as
this psycho?
a dangerous foreigner. And, I can't exactly say I disagree with that. And then she dragon roasts the Tarleys just because they won't bend the knee, which becomes her catchphrase in the last season. But people are actually starting to notice that she's getting a little crazy here. Like Tyrion and Varys have a discussion about it, but Tyrion decides to stay loyal. And then Cersei, which we're coming up to now finally, is actually able to execute Missandei.
Damn, and I think that was
I
what
feel
the
like that was
tipping point.
that was her tipping point. I definitely think
The water was already boiling, but now it's like boiling over.
exactly, and steaming.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that come into play. So she's been getting broken down this entire time she's been in Westeros. So if you notice, she's never felt so alone, even though she's never had so many people around her. And so she's always looking off, and everyone's always like, congratulating Jon or whatever, and like giving him the credit. But like, and he kind of forgets about her too. He gets caught up in it, and she's just kind of like off by herself, and she's just like watching it, and she's like, I have no real friends here. It's crazy. So she just felt like really alone, and the only person that she really felt close to was Jon. And Jon was saying like once he found out his lineage, he couldn't really give her that affection, anymore. And so she felt like she was kind of betrayed by that as well.
Yeah, she was definitely threatened. But he swore he would never reveal his own lineage, and he would stay loyal to her.
But then he did.
So then they attack King's Landing. Daenerys agrees to spare the commoners if they surrender and ring the bell.
But it's not that easy.
Daenerys goes crazy and starts dragon firing everyone.
Yeah, like the town,
as the bells
innocent
ring.
people. Mm-hmm. Did you feel like that also made sense? Like the battle's over and she just looks at the Red Keep and then she just snaps after that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it made sense for her because she was losing it. She was losing it so hard.
She's barely holding on as it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
While all this is happening, the Hound and the Mountain go at it, a.k.a. Clegane Bowl.
Clegane Bowl.
You remember that?
Yeah, I remember the fight, but I didn't.
Because the whole series, people were like, they were just waiting for the Hound and the Mountain to go at it, and it finally happens in this episode.
Yeah.
So Clegane Bowl ensues.
And, I feel like the Hound finally gets to, vent some of his feelings on him, but he can't really overpower him,
No, because this guy's like a mutant zombie now.
Yeah. And they
on top of the fact that he was already freakishly strong.
Exactly. And so they end up both meeting their end.
Plummeting to like a fiery death.
And then Jaime leaves Brienne after sleeping with her and makes it back to King's Landing in a very short amount of time. Another this continent is smaller than it seems moment.
Yeah.
They're trying to escape the Red Keep and end up at a dead end as it collapses on top of them.
That's it for the Lannister twins.
Yeah, and Tyrion eventually finds their bodies. So all that happens, they end up, Daenerys ends up in the Red Keep with Jon and goes on a little rant about how she's liberating all the people
of
by
the
killing
entire
them.
world.
Yeah. And she's going to continue liberating all the people by killing them.
And that's the thing is like at this point now in this mental stage, I feel like she's just gonna like kill everything. She doesn't just plan on killing these tyrants, but she's just gonna wipe everyone out, anyone that opposes her.
Yeah. Yeah, and so Jon sees this, and he sees how she's lost it.
Are we flowing into episode 6 now?
Yeah.
The Iron Throne.
So yeah, she's lost it, and he kills her.
How'd you feel about that? About him being the one to kill her, or the way that he went about doing it?
I think it was like very dramatic.
Well, I mean, the whole show is dramatic.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like in a way, because, everybody gets their satisfying end, but maybe because Daenerys was so liked and wasn't really considered a villain.
Mm-hmm. Until like the very end.
Yeah, until the very end. She didn't really get a satisfying end. But to me, I mean, since I had been kind of following her descent the entire time where everybody else was surprised by it, I was kind of sad not to get my satisfying end for her.
So how would you have? Oh, I guess we'll get into that.
Yeah.
A little
Well,
bit
I
later.
mean, yeah, I guess my imagination isn't that great, so I couldn't think of anything grand, but
Oh, okay.
I did have another idea. So then, yeah, that's the end of that. And then we end up with a couple weeks later, John obviously did kill his leader, and so he's in jail.
He betrayed them. I'm surprised that he wasn't killed, honestly. I thought they would have killed him.
Yeah, I know, I agree.
Drogon destroys the Iron Throne.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So I don't know. I also felt kind of sad about that too, because I'm like, man, this is now that I guess this is also the start of like a new age, because everything's always been about getting the Iron Throne, but it's like at the same time come all this way and then it's just like destroyed at the end.
Yeah, it was very. It definitely was a symbolic thing, you know, and Drogon was grieving, like the whole purpose was gone.
And then I wonder what Drogon does with Daenerys' body. Where's he going?
I don't know. That's a good question. Like, does he somehow bury it or something like that, or
maybe he goes back to Valyria, where like the Targaryens came from?
Maybe, yeah. It's interesting. Maybe it's some sort of instinctual thing to take her home,
wherever home is.
Yeah. So yeah, after that we get to the reveal of the new leadership and all their decisions and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now we're down to the end.
All right, so the very end, the North secedes.
They remain independent.
Yeah, they decide to just, and then they eventually declare Sansa Queen of the North.
Queen of the North.
And they talk it out a little bit and decide to make Bran king.
I didn't know how to feel about this either. A lot of people are saying, who's going to be a better king than Bran? But I'm like, two things that were inconsistent with this. So the whole time, the Three-Eyed Raven just wants to be kind of left alone so that way he can do his own thing. And then he even said in the past that he didn't want like any authority or anything. And then now all of a sudden he's like, why do you think I'm here? I wanted to be king this whole time. I'm like, what the fuck? Okay, whatever.
I mean, the Three-Eyed Raven has kind of carried on, but I feel like maybe there's still a little bit of Bran in there somewhere. You know, he's not just the Three-Eyed Raven. He's still in there somewhere, but he's so cold now. You know, I mean,
who's gonna want to follow him?
He can see the past. He can not make the same mistakes that other men have made or whatever. But he's so cold, and
he's like a robot.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, how can he be any sort of good leader? I guess.
Exactly. He'll be good in the sense that he can see things happen before they actually happen. But other than that, people are going to be like, I don't know about this guy. He's weird.
He's weird. And, I hate to say it, but he's a cripple. And I'm not sure that people would.
He's weak. Yeah, that's true. Because when kings need to be strong, right, and capable, and they need to be a positive influence. And,
right.
Obviously, like some of the past kings haven't been that necessarily. But, typically, like, I think that's why so many people followed Robert Baratheon during Robert's Rebellion, was that he was just like this like fierce warrior. And I think Ned knew that he was going to get shit done. Yeah.
So Bran elects Tyrion as his hand.
Which
and
makes
then
sense.
John returns to the Night Watch, which honestly, I feel like that would have been I feel like that's where he kind of thrived the most. So
you think
that makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's where he was able to kind of, like, I don't think he would want to be king of everybody, but to be kind of the head of a small group.
Like Lord Commander of that.
Lord Commander of the Night's Watch.
But see, he even stated, he was like, there's still a Night's Watch. And that's kind of how I felt about it too. I'm like, why the fuck is there a Night's Watch? Like, the wildlings are no longer a threat. There's no undead army, Yeah,
it's just going to be kind of a place to send misfits and,
I guess,
criminals and stuff.
Yeah, they need somewhere to send them to give them a purpose.
It's kind of like military school.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. And then, Arya sets sail, setting her up for, from what I heard, a spinoff, but I haven't seen anything about that yet.
What's west of Westeros? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out.
Right.
And that's how the show ends.
That was Game of Thrones, ladies and gentlemen.
Game of Thrones. Well, you know what? This is something new that we've never done on any other show before, but Steph and I also came up with a bonus activity for the audience. And our activity is, how would we have ended this series? So do you want to start this off?
Sure, yeah, because like I said, like I don't actually have too big of an imagination, and so I didn't really come up with anything too crazy.
Man, I was nerding out for this, and it might be a little too nerdy for people, but we'll see.
So yeah, as I said, I didn't really buy Bran as king, right?
Me either.
And I felt like, yeah, maybe Jon could have ended up doing it, but I guess they needed, like, after he killed Daenerys, they needed somebody to punish, and he took that. And Grey Worm like was not satisfied, and the Unsullied were not satisfied until there was some sort of justice doled out against him. So, but yeah, I definitely don't think he would have wanted to be king at all. I toyed with the idea of maybe Sansa becoming queen, but I don't think she would have actually, like, she's doing okay in the north, but I don't think she would have necessarily been any good as queen. But it's funny because like that was her goal at the beginning, was to marry Joffrey and become queen.
Become queen, yeah. That's true.
But then
and she
I
was
thought,
kind of being groomed for it her whole life.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. So then I thought, what about Tyrion?
Tyrion as king. Okay.
Yeah, and so I was thinking he did a lot of growing throughout the series. Yeah, obviously, he did what he had to do to survive, but he learned how to fight. He was able to do a little bit of ruling when he ruled Meereen when Daenerys was with the Dothraki. And I was thinking he was good at negotiating, and he was kind of sort of the only one that was able to bring a little bit of peace to Meereen for a time before the end of that.
The Masters.
Yeah. And so I feel like, maybe if they would have, thought of that earlier and then kind of worked him up, given him a little bit more development and a little bit more confidence and strength, he could have been the one that actually rose up and killed Daenerys himself.
Interesting. Okay.
And then Jon would claim his identity, but abdicate the throne to Tyrion.
What? So he would accept it at first, but then like hand it off?
Yeah, because he didn't want it.
Yeah.
He never wanted it.
I think he may have been a good king, but would he have wanted it? No.
He kind of would have been thrust into it, And that's kind of what he got thrust into everything that he ever did.
Pretty much, yeah. It's like what did he actually kind of decide to do on his own? I think it was join the Night's Watch. And that was it.
Yeah, and so Tyrion would become king, right? And with their solid new council that they had, I think he would do all right. The question is, would the people accept him? Like similarly, well, I mean, I guess it would kind of be the same situation as Bran,
Oh, you think
will they accept Bran? Will they accept Tyrion? I don't know. They would either not, or they would just have to.
Do you think also that they would have been tired of just having the Lannisters rule the Iron Throne?
That's also possible, yeah. But of all the Lannisters, Tyrion was probably the best one.
Yeah. Oh, hands down.
Definitely the best one.
I think he was definitely the most popular character in the entire series. I feel like even in the books, everyone likes Tyrion the best.
I feel like Jon Snow is actually probably
you think so?
In the show for sure.
Okay.
Everyone was super into Jon Snow. Daenerys was pretty popular too.
Oh yeah, very popular because that showed the strong female character.
Yeah, but definitely Tyrion. Yeah, Tyrion had a lot of love, including from myself.
But that's not taken away. Like they had other strong female characters as well, like Bran and Arya. But do you feel like they needed Daenerys because they wanted someone that could compete with the big boys? That could actually rule.
Yeah, I think definitely like not. I mean, obviously Brienne's not going to try and come up and be queen or something like that. So. Yeah, I think Daenerys was definitely the woman. So what do you think? How would it have ended if you were...
So I had a little bit of a different take on it. So to start off, I would have really liked for each of the dragons to be unique in some way, like have their own distinct specialty. Like maybe Drogon could have been like the tank, like he has tougher skin or scales, and Viserion would have been the quickest flyer, and then Rhaegal would have, I don't know, maybe had a more powerful flame breath or something, right?
Yeah.
So for the sake of my story, I'm just going to base it off of that logic. So Undead Viserion, who in my version would have been like the quickest flyer, that would have essentially given him the agility along with the strong magical fire ice breath, right? To be able to give him the advantage, almost like an unfair advantage, because, the villains always need to have that. The heroes need to have some sort of big hurdle to overcome. So I would have kept probably a lot of it the same up until the Long Night battle. I firmly believe that the Night King should not have been stopped at Winterfell. I still stand by that. That just made him seem so insignificant and so weak and so useless. So I would have done things a little bit differently. The Long Night battle still happens at Winterfell. Cersei barely sends any of her men to fight. I think she maybe like sends like a tiny army to say like, hey, yeah, we'll back you guys up. And then, but the resistance ultimately to the undead is futile. Like they quickly begin getting trounced. Jon and Daenerys are not successful in battling the Night King in an aerial battle because Viserion or undead Viserion is just too fast for them. And also I felt like maybe they underestimated the Night King a bit, because I feel like Daenerys always felt that when it came to the sky and dragons, like she was the queen, like no one could touch her. She didn't expect that maybe the Night King to have a weird connection with undead Viserion as well. So he would be like the quickest one, and he would be able to like evade them and kind of get the jump on them. And Jon's also a novice when it comes to flying on a dragon, so he wouldn't have been much help. But I would have eventually had it where maybe at some point Rhaegal is hurt, Jon is flung off, Daenerys has to quickly swoop down to catch him at the last minute with Drogon. At the same time, he's too low, and so they run into some trees or some shit. They're incapacitated for a while, kind of removed from the battle. Night King can continue doing his thing. In an attempt to spare what forces they have left, everyone flees Winterfell, giving the Night King the victory, essentially. But during the escape, because the Night King's not worried about destroying everything, like raising buildings. He's just trying to get to Bran. His mission is like, I want to get to the Three-Eyed Raven. So everyone's kind of like fleeing to King's Landing. They're leaving Winterfell. So during the escape, Bran is being transported in a carriage, and the Night King is pursuing him on undead Viserion. As he's about to get to the Three-Eyed Raven, this is where Daenerys and Jon re-engage in a second dragon aerial battle out of nowhere. And this time they kill undead Viserion again. They kill him for good. And that knocks the Night King off into an uncertain fate. Like he just basically plummets off, like how he did on the show, when he got knocked off and he just like falls. So that's going to be like, okay, well, we don't know what happened to him, but just as long as he's not pursuing Bran anymore, that's fine for now. And then at the end of, I guess that would have been the Long Night, it's revealed that the Night King survives the fall, and then he raises the fallen soldiers at Winterfell, and then they start marching towards King's Landing.
Dang. So
now his army travels so slow that it gives the main characters enough time to regroup and prepare for one final stand in King's Landing. Jaime and the remaining Lannister army, they survive Winterfell, and they actually convince Cersei to help the protagonist for real this time. Like, you have no idea who we're fucking with. Like, they just mowed us down. We had no chance, Yeah. And so Cersei's like, okay, well, if you say so. Having the full Lannister army join the final stand alongside the Golden Company, this is where we have like all hands on deck. Like, this is going to be all of the living versus all of the dead.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to see. And so it begins to snow in King's Landing for the first time in a long time, if ever. And that signifies that the Night King is getting close. And they did snow in King's Landing on the show as well, but they didn't have a reason for it.
Pointless symbolic thing.
Yeah, it was there was like no reason for it. So I would have actually had a reason, like, because everywhere the Night King goes, there's always like this like weird like dark cloud.
Yeah.
So everything becomes like really dark, depressing, and fucking cold. Like, it's just almost unbearably cold. And it almost feels like North of the Wall, but like in King's Landing, Yeah. And the big battle happens, but this time the heroes have more firepower by defending with catapults, scorpions, etc. It's more fortified. It's much more equipped than Winterfell.
Yeah.
You're even fucking Euron Greyjoy, have him show up with this fleet and provide like naval support, or maybe like dock behind the undead and like attack from the rear or something, flanking them, whatever. It's all hands on deck at this point. Night King reinforces his army again with the freshly killed on the battlefield. So it's like, just as you think like they're getting the upper hand, he's like, nope, time to raise the dead, and like bring his army back to full capacity. White Walkers they eventually breach, and they just start wrecking fools within King's Landing. Ground forces retreat to the Red Keep. Jon and Daenerys mount on Rhaegal and Drogon. This gives them the reason to torch the city because there's just undead everywhere. So that's why they're destroying the city. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to kind of I'm not completely erasing everything that happened on the show, but I'm trying to just do it in a way that makes more sense. Yeah.
So is there going to be a big aerial fight?
So not anymore, because the Night King doesn't have Viserion anymore.
Okay.
Viserion died at Winterfell. Right about this time, the Night King is looking like a complete badass, walking through fire, because the whole town is torched. He's effortlessly mowing down anyone in his way. Cersei ignites the rest of the wildfire to, in a desperate attempt to get rid of the undead. And takes out a lot of the undead, but the White Walkers also seem impervious to the wildfire as well.
Ooh.
And the undead breach the Red Keep. And this is where we have a cool shot, as I envision it, with Sandor and Gregor Clegane inadvertently fighting alongside one another to take out the undead. Night King is still coming for Bran's ass. Who's inside the castle?
Has everybody been equipped with dragon glass or Valyrian steel?
I'm sure they would have, yeah.
Okay.
So everyone would have been trying to do what they can, right? With whatever supplies that they had. I don't know if they would have had enough time to go back to Dragonstone and mine some more, but they would have had a few.
It was pretty close. It was only, a 5-minute dragon ride away, so.
Yeah. And John lands. He was still on Rhaegal at this point, so he lands and chases the White Walkers inside the castle, because now the White Walkers and the Night King are inside the castle of the Red Keep. This is where maybe we would have Jon, Tormund, Bran, Jaime, the Hound, the Mountain, basically all the fighters. They would have all been here, and this is where we go toe to toe with the White Walkers. So I would have maybe 3 separate battles break off, but all happening at the same time, but within the castle. We would have had Jon and Tormund take on one White Walker. The Cleganes could take on one, and then Bran and Jaime could take on the last one, right? And then Jon is able to kill the first White Walker with Longclaw, how he did in Hardhome. Bran is able to kill one with Oathkeeper. And then the Cleganes are struggling because they don't have Valyrian steel or dragon glass or anything. So Arya actually shows up. She does the whole Night King thing in my story. So this is where she's getting choked out, drops the dagger, and shanks that fool.
Nice. So she still gets her moment.
Yeah, she still gets her moment. I want everyone to have their moment. And then so the Night King is still pursuing Bran, and the White Walkers are essentially just kind of buying time for the Night King to get to Bran. And so the Night King finally catches up with Bran, and Theon's there guarding him, just like the show. And it appears, but obviously now we're in King's Landing. It appears that Theon is going to have to face the Night King alone until Jon and Tormund show up, because they were just the closest, I guess, where they killed their White Walker. They're the closest to where the Night King was. And the Night King busts out some Darth Maul shit as he single-handedly takes on all 3 heroes, Theon, Tormund, and Jon. Because I want the Night King to just be badass, unstoppable, essentially. So Theon is killed at some point during this fight. I would have made it so Theon had at least a little bit more face time, and he didn't go out like such a wimp, He would at least got to fight the Night King for a bit. Tormund gets knocked out, and Jon ultimately somehow gets the final blow with Longclaw. Undead army is stopped at the very end. So this is when all hope is lost, Jon somehow is able to stop them just before he gets to Bran.
Right.
And then Tormund carries Theon outside the castle so that they can find someone to help him, because he's bleeding out or whatever, and he's basically just died, and they're hoping that they can save him. Daenerys lands to get the news that they defeated the undead and they won. But then, out of nowhere, Cersei orders her gold cloaks to attack the remaining exhausted heroes. So she planned this the whole time. She knew that if they survived, she was going to still get one up on everyone by turning on them when they least expect it. So the Mountain stabs the Hound in the back with the cheap shot. Daenerys quickly mounts Drogon to get airborne. Rhaegal is flying closely behind. But just as they get over the walls of the Red Keep, Euron has a scorpion take out Rhaegal, just like the show. Well-timed scorpion shot. And this, for me, is where Daenerys loses her shit. This is where she just fucking snaps, starts killing everything, starting with the Greyjoy fleet, then the few scorpions on the Red Keep, then the castle itself. Jaime finally realizes how much of a monster Cersei is and decides that he has to be the one to kill her. There's no one that could get close enough. So he tries to convince Cersei, he works his way, and he tries to convince Cersei that he still loves her and that he's on her side, but then tries to ultimately, he starts getting ready to kill her, and then the Mountain ends up defending Cersei and fatally stabs Jaime. Cersei is torn up by this, of course, but she flees with Qyburn through a secret tunnel. Brienne shows up She fights her way through the Queen's Guard and sees that Gregor Clegane killed Jaime. So then she attempts to defend his honor by fighting the Mountain herself. She puts up a little bit of a fight, but then the Mountain is a bit too much for her. And just as he's about to kill her, the Hound shows back up because this fool just refuses to die. And he's just like, let's fucking go. So as the castle's beginning to crumble, Sandor orders Brienne to get out. And then Clegane Bowl happens. Both brothers end up dying in a similar fashion on the show.
Dang.
Now we're in the dungeon. Qyburn leads Cersei with a couple of the Queen's Guard down into the dungeons, where Qyburn tells them to escape through the passageway that leads down to Blackwater Bay or whatever. But it's been blocked off with rubble, right? Similar.
Right.
And then Qyburn slays the two members of the Queen's Guard, leaving a confused Cersei by herself. Arya reveals herself to Cersei before slicing her throat. You know, getting revenge, like, what's up, bitch? So
I didn't see that coming.
Then winter came for House Lannister, you know, and then the dungeon caves in on Arya.
That's an even better Arya moment.
Oh, yeah. I wanted Jon to be the one to kill the Night King, and I wanted Arya to kill Cersei. So that's just how I had it planned out.
So do you have Daenerys survive? Or did she go down with the Scorpion? No, right?
So we're getting to that. We're getting to that. So she's still like destroying the castle from above, right? And then word gets out that Cersei's dead. Daenerys reveals her plans to liberate the world, similar to the show. Jon begins to see that there may be no end to the fighting until the world is covered in fire and blood. Daenerys now sits on the Iron Throne as an unrecognizable person, darker in tone, mad with bloodlust. Jon begs her to stop as they've won already. Like, there's nothing left to do. And she's captured the Iron Throne. The Lannisters are defeated, but Daenerys chooses not to listen to him. And now Grey Worm is kind of on edge now, you know, kind of similar to, you know, how he was portrayed in the final moments as well. Jon, being his noble yet idiotic self, says that he can't sit idle and allow this madness to continue. So that triggers Daenerys because, you know, she's being called crazy again, something that's been held over her head her whole life. Basically tells Jon that, you know, something along the lines of if he's not with her, then he's against her, and orders Grey Worm to stop the traitor.
Dang. And
so Jon reluctantly fights Grey Worm, as Grey Worm and Daenerys have now become the monsters they swore to eliminate. Jon disarms Grey Worm and holds a sword to his throat as he desperately pleads with Daenerys that this isn't her, and, you know, the whole, like, this isn't the woman I fell in love with. I know she's in there somewhere, blah, blah, blah. Grey Worm is able to, as he's distracted, knock the sword away and lands a dagger to the ribs that he had hidden before Jon kills him in self-defense. And then Daenerys finally snaps out of it. Like, seeing Jon, like, you know, fatally wounded is finally what, like, snaps her out of, like, this weird craziness that she's been in. And she starts to see the error in her ways. Daenerys and Jon share one last kiss before dying in her arms. Reverse of how it went on the show. So now instead of Jon holding Daenerys is holding Jon as he's dying. And since she lost so much in her life and her heart's been broken so many times, she realizes that it can't all be for nothing. Daenerys now has the opportunity to actually prove everyone wrong by not being crazy, you know, not being the stereotypical crazy Targaryen, having the freedom to rule the Iron Throne as she always intended to, and not let the people she loved die in vain. And Tyrion will remain as Hand of the King. Bran is now an advisor instead of the king. He's the advisor.
That would make more sense.
Sam doesn't accept the role of Maester, as he's still upset about Daenerys for killing his dad and his brother. Mm-hmm. So he's just going to go back to Harrenhal and be the head of House Tarly. Brienne is going to be the head of the Queen's Guard, and King's Landing begins to rebuild. And since Daenerys cannot have children as well as Bran, you know, this breaks the proverbial wheel, as her eventual successor will be voted on by all of the kingdoms together. And then Sansa, Queen of the North, she's still independent, still doesn't like Daenerys, and grieves at the news of Jon's death. The show ends with an unknown man hires a sailor to sail west of Westeros, handing him a bag of gold, essentially overpaying him. Delighted yet suspicious, he asks, "Who are you?" And the unknown person replies back with a smirk, "No one." It is then revealed that this man is carrying Needle as they set out into the open ocean. End of series.
Dang.
Do you know who that was at the end?
Obviously, it's Arya.
Even though like the building collapsed, the dungeon collapsed on Arya after she killed Cersei, I would have wanted to like keep her alive and then still produce that spinoff.
That's cool. Yeah, I feel like that was better. All of it would have worked, except for the fact that Daenerys is crazy from the start. So she can't just snap out of that.
A lot of people, would have fought me for that one because they probably would have been like, "No, Daenerys is crazy." There's no coming back from that. That is a wrap, folks. If you made it to the end of our podcast, then you won yourselves a free Dragonflight boarding pass on Air Drogon.
Nice. That's a 5-minute flight right there, across the whole continent.
Whether he actually allows you to ride is another story, though. Any final thoughts or closing comments?
That was quite the undertaking, as I mentioned at the beginning, and we survived.
Somehow, yeah, we got it done. Did you have any favorite characters in the show? Like for me, of course, I mentioned Ygritte. I also liked Beric Dondarrion. As to me, he was just gangster. He had a cool look with the eye patch. He had the flame sword, and he died and kept. He died, was resurrected several times, and kept fighting. Yeah. I also like Tormund Giantsbane. He's just a likable person.
Yeah, and his little thing with Brienne was hilarious.
With Brienne, which I was kind of sad that never happened, but
right. It's all about Littlefinger. Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, I think mine's more predictable. I really like Tyrion.
Of course, yeah. How could you not?
I liked Arya mostly. Like I liked how much she grew, but in the end, I feel like her role did not have a lot of purpose.
But see, if she was the one to kill Cersei, that would have been dope.
That would have been nice. Yeah, that would have been great.
That would have been a nice little swerve. I wanted to throw one last one out at the audience.
Yeah, because you have a lot more of her, doing disguises and surprise, you're dead.
Surprise, motherfucker.
That's right.
But I just had so much fun revisiting Game of Thrones, and
I
hope that we did justice to this awesome series.
I hope so. Yeah, I definitely did not get a chance to rewatch, as I mentioned, but this revisiting it like this has made me want to rewatch it. So I think when I have downtime at work and I'm not doing much of anything, that's what I'm going to be rewatching next.
Awesome, yeah. Well, it's kind of weird too, which kind of fits into us doing the podcast, was I started up Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, just chipping away at my out of control backlog. It's like a 5 or 6 year old game, honestly.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot that Kit Harington was the main villain in the game.
In the main villain? That's hilarious.
Yeah, he's the main villain. Because I'm like running into Jon Snow again on the screen.
That's how I felt recently watching Eternals. I was like, we got Robb Stark and Jon Snow.
And Jon.
I get to see them side by side.
This has been Aflixionados Podcast, Episode 10, Game of Thrones. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Yeah.
Valar Morghulis.